Introduction. Persuasion has been used since the inception of time. Parents use persuasion to persuade their kids. The government uses persuasion to persuade citizens to obey certain rules. Companies use persuasion skills to make people buy their products and subscribe to their services. There is a reason why brands tend to associate their products with certain colors, shapes, and imagery. They are doing all these things to persuade us. Even the government uses dark psychology to persuade its citizens to obey simple rules like to obey the traffic lights on the streets. Teachers use dark psychology to persuade their students to do their assignments. Persuasion is everywhere all around us, and we have been persuaded by something whether we like it or not. Guys use dark psychology on women, and women use dark psychology on men. We are persuaded by many different things, and over time, we start to do the things that we are persuaded to do unconsciously. Brands have learned to associate certain imagery to their products. For instance, beer companies like to use hot women to advertise their beer cans. Shoe companies like to use athletes for advertising their shoes. And beauty companies like to use famous celebrities to promote their creams, cosmetics, and lotions. All those things are dark psychology. Dark psychology is all about persuading someone without actually persuading them. What this means is that the person being persuaded thinks that he is the one that is consciously making the decision to do that thing without knowing that he or she has been persuaded. You can use dark psychology to get any guy you want as a woman and likewise for men. And you do that by making subtle moves and using under-the-radar tactics to make others make the peers think that he or she is in total control and can't wait to see you not knowing that you're the one that is in complete control. You can use dark psychology to get any girl to go crazy for you. And likewise, you can use dark psychology to get any person that you want. There are many mind control tactics of dark psychology that we're going to cover in this book. Mind control is the act of controlling people to do something. Doctors use mind control to make us eat healthy. By telling the dangers of unhealthy eating and showing us statistics of the people that have suffered from diabetes and heart disease. The government uses dark psychology to make us obey traffic rules by telling us that we will receive a $100 ticket in the mail if we fail to do so. Chapter 1. The Dark Psychology of the Government and its History. There are many theories out there about why the government uses psychology. So let us talk about some of the studies that happened and why they were developed and what we can learn from them. During the 1950s and 60s, the U.S. was involved in a Cold War, which was the period after World War II, when two ideologists, communism and capitalism, were battling for a global position. The first side was the U.S. and its allies. The other side was the Soviet Union, Russia, and the Chinese allies. At that time, the U.S. feared that the communists were using mind control techniques on their soldiers that were being held captive in North Korea. In 1953, the head of the CIA green-tinged aligned a project to find out how they could control their enemy's mind using a combination of drugs and psychological techniques. Over time, the NK contrast studies became one of the world's government abuse of power and disregard of basic human rights. In more than 150 studies performed as part of the CIA's, they attempted to develop mind control techniques with a combination of psychedelics like LSD, mind, and ecstasy, and Super Saiyan. They used stimulants like metal siding and barbecue. They exposed some of their test tubes to electroconvulsive therapy, and they even experimented with Paula relics like Anastasia. The studies were conducted in the US and Canada on prisoners, students, and university, and even on hospital patients. Although there is no exact number about how many people were in the experiment, they still carried out the experiment. Imagine not knowing that your physician is dosing you with psychedelics. How terrifying is that? That is how it was for those people. One of the things that we know most about Worst Operation, Midnight Climax, took place in San Francisco and New York City from 1954 to 1965. In this twisted experiment, the CIA and blood prostitutes who ruled men to safe houses were agents that drugged them with LSD using food, drinks, and cigarettes. Then, through a two-way neuron with recording devices hidden in the rooms, the CIA agents were able to observe the men's behavior. They reported that all the men, except one man that was high on LSD, gave them more information than expected. Now, after about 11 years of study, the result of Operation Midnight Climax was deemed inconclusive, as LSD was found to be too unpredictable to be used in counterintelligence efforts. We also have what is referred to as the Montreal experiments. They too were funded by the CIA and conducted between 1957 and 1964 by Dr. Donald Kevin at the McGill University of Montreal, Canada. The experiments were started as a way to cure schizophrenia, through which the doctor calls it the sidekick driving technique. He claims that the technique used to change people's memories and erase people's thoughts. The reported results were what attracted the attention of the CIA and MK Ultra that was created to control mind techniques. The doctors used orthodox and controversial methods including electroconvulsive therapy, central deprivation, and drug-induced sleep using tourism, which is an antipsychotic medication. Once they slept, they inject them with LSD and then played these pre-recorded audio tapes to them repeatedly, sometimes for up to 16 hours a day. Of the 300 subjects involved in the experiment, some were previously diagnosed with cyclothymic, but some of them were also diagnosed with anxiety and depression, and all of the people signed up for the studies in hopes of seeing some improvement in their symptoms. Instead, the majority of them experienced retrograde amnesia. They regressed to a childlike state, having to relearn basic skills, and many even had to be potty trained again. It was devastating for them. So overall, it isn't clear about how many people were harmed by that MK Ultra, but the majority of studies occurred between 1953 and 1964, and in 1973, the American government was under extreme pressure due to the negativity surrounding the Watergate scandal. As a result, the CIA director shot at the MK program and all related documents to be destroyed. They did accidentally overlook some documents, and that is what some people have been used to piece together what actually happened if they didn't dim the experiment. Even though the experiments were altered, the permanent damage was already done. Some individuals even decided to sue the government for their trauma and pain, and that was the end of the MK Ultra. From 1955 to 1973, the U.S. Army conducted classified human research at the Edgewood Arsenal facility in Maryland. They're looking for chemicals that will have a similar psychological effect as the nerve agent, but with less fidelity. When they press, the U.S. government stated that the studies were conducted so that they will find new pharmaceuticals for protective clothing and backscreen for the soldiers in the field, along with testing pesticides. They also tested psychoactive agents like LSD and PCP. Over 7,000 military personnel and about 1,000 civilians were subject to this experiment, and they were exposed to about 250 chemical agents. Reading about this in the U.S. Department of Veterans website, they stated that long-term follow-up was not planned as part of the deal studies. The National Academics of Science reviewed the potential health effects of this experiment and did not find any significant long-term physical harm, except for the veterans that were exposed to larger doses of Monster Legends. In 1975, they brought the director of the program before Congress, and he was chastised for his method and lack of follow-up care. So they were forced to notify all subjects and volunteers of the exact nature of their chemical exposure. They also awarded some financial compensation to some of the families who have lost their loved ones as a result of the human experiments, and in the end, the Congress dismisses the doctor because they didn't believe to be any long-term harm of the over 8,000 subjects involved. Psychology itself isn't inherently bad, but there are so many positive and helpful aspects to it, but when it comes to developing military tools, it appears as there is no limit to what the government will or will not do to be a leader in the field. Chapter 2. The Dark Psychology of Brainwashing. Today, we are bombarded with mind control techniques daily. There are many different types and levels of mind control. We will go over an overview of the types, and we'll talk about some examples of them. There are 3 basic levels of mind control. Each level corresponds with a different type of psychology. So far, no technology can control what you choose to believe. So we will talk about the methods to defend it, and we will also look at some of the implications that it has on civilizations. Mind control skills are used against us for the obvious reason, whether it's politically or scientifically speaking. Simply by existing in a society, we are constantly subject to manipulation, sway, or indoctrination. The first level appeals to consciousness. The second level corresponds to unconsciousness, and the last level appeals to biological. In terms of psychology, the first one, consciousness, has to do with cognitive psychology. Cognitive means being aware of what's going on. The second one is unconsciousness, which corresponds with behavioral psychology, and while the last one is biological psychology, which talks about psychiatry. This is where you can try to control the mind using physical things like drugs and electric shock therapy. Every mind control technique fits into its own methods. Some of the mind control techniques will fit into one of these levels, while some mind techniques will fit in between two of them. But every mind control technique fits inside the sun part of the chart. Now, let us talk about the different levels of mind control and what fits in between. The conscious level. The first level is the conscious level, the cognitive mind control level. This level is a level that deals with information. It does not talk about punishment or physical pain, it appeals to your reason. The basic forms of this are education and ideological indoctrination. A good example of this is when you get your driver's license. You have to decide to take fighting classes, and you learn the rules of the road, and the intention is to make you behave a certain way when you are driving. Most people don't have a problem with this, because if you don't behave a certain way when you drive, then you will have a problem. Ideological indoctrination is the worldview and your philosophy, and what you're educated in and your worldview. So this includes your political choice, your education, your religious education, and even your science education. Now this means how do you view the world, and by that, what you were dictated by. At this level, you have to mention the fact, which means information. Now because propaganda has been abused in the past, people normally have a negative view of it. The basic idea is that somebody wants you to view the world in a certain way, so they are educating you to do so. Propaganda is just information control. Information control isn't that bad. For instance, have you ever seen a billboard that says that 50,000 people die when drinking and driving? That is propaganda, and it is not bad. Hitler used propaganda to educate Germany into the idea that all of Germany's problems was because of the Jews. Now that is bad propaganda. The unconscious or behavioral psychology. Let's look at the next level of mind control, which is unconscious or behavioral psychology. This does not appeal to the conscious mind. It is an attempt to control somebody without his or her conscious decision being involved. The biggest school of psychology is behavioral psychology that comes from Pablo's psychology. A great example of that is the story of the man that rang the bell for the dog to salivate that we talked about above. This deals with stimulus response. Stimulus means when something happens. In the man in the dog case, it's ringing the bell. Response. In the man in the dog case is the dog salivating. Now, this does not appear to be a conscious mind. The dog did not decide to salivate, they just did it automatically. Unlike the conscious level, this level often includes physical pain, punishment, and torment. For instance, you can implant a commanding chip in somebody so that when they hear the command, which is the stimulus, they will go and do something, which is the response. It is a stimulus response. The person that is programmed to do that thing doesn't decide to do it because it is an automatic response, and in fact, he doesn't even know that he is being programmed because that thing is in the subconscious. It is at this point that we have hypnosis, and the reason why it's so is that hypnosis is implanted commands into the subconscious. For instance, there is the operator that says when I say bubblegum, bark like a dog. The stimulus is the bubblegum, whereas the response is the barking like a dog. Or the operator says when I snap my fingers, you should act like a stripper. So he snaps his fingers, which is the stimulus, and acting like a stripper is the response. Creating a stimulus response mechanism is called conditioning. Part of the conditioning is programming somebody to associate pain or pleasure with something. Now another part of this level is called punishment. Punishment is an attempt to make somebody associate pain with undesirable behavior. Now let's say if you have a kid and the kid flicks the switch off. On the conscious level, you would sit your child down and explain to the child why it is wrong, and hopefully, your child will make the decision not to do it again. On the unconscious level, you can beat the hell out of the child until the child tends to associate pain with switching the switch off and hope that doesn't do it again. Behaviorism is an attempt to control somebody's behavior like the way you train a dog using the rewards and punishments. Now the cognitive approach is the best, and this is the level where we have brainwashing or interrogation, and you will do this using physical pain to control someone. Another note about brainwashing is that it has the word washing, which means to wipe something away and to wash it away. The word brainwashing comes from a technique that was used in China, which is called political re-education. The idea is that when you want to wash something away, you put something else in its place. In the MK Ultra program, the psychiatrist called it de-patterning. When you take somebody from their religion and use mind control techniques, you will be able to wipe out their religious beliefs and put another belief in his place. This is called programming. Under brainwashing, we have political re-education, we have the patterning, and we also have religious education or deprogramming. Biological psychology. The last level is biology, which equates to biological psychology or psychiatrist. At this level, you are attempting to control someone's behavior through physical interventions. Physical interventions include brain surgery, drugs, electric shock, or implanting something into the brain. For the child that flipped the switch off, the cognitive approach will be sitting the child down and explain to him why he is wrong now. The behavioral approach will be to spank him, and the biological approach will be to give him a psychotic drug, or a remote control robot. Those are the basic levels. Many different types of mind control techniques that fit into those levels, but we will not be going deep into them. In between the conscious and unconscious levels, there are different levels to control somebody's behavior, and we are constantly subjected to this daily. One of these techniques is public relations, and it is aimed to make you feel a certain way about something. This is not just to make you feel good about something, it can make bad about a competitor, a group, or a person, and it is called black public relations. Another mind control technique is marketing and advertisement. There is a reason why half-naked girls hold a can of beer, as we discussed before. Another mind control technique that falls between the conscious and unconscious level of mind control is pandering, and the word pandering means to fulfill a moral desire. A prostitute panders to a sexual desire. A drug dealer panders to an addiction. So what this means is that you're controlling someone by giving them what they want. Under pandering, future control by destruction is included, and that includes television, pornography, and video games. Another mind control technique on the biological level is addiction. Manipulative people keep their victims to them by making them addicted to drugs. And beyond that, there is a reason why caffeine has been added to soft drinks. And there is a reason why energy has been added to fast food. And there is a reason why sugar is added to almost everything in the grocery store. It's because it is a type of mind control. The last technique, which is at the very bottom, is when you give up on trying to controlling the person's mind and you restrain them. An example is a straitjacket, institutionalization, imprisonment, and heavy tranquilizers. If everything fails and you can't control the person's mind, there is still something left, and that thing is to shoot the person. So that is basically what dark psychology brainwashing is all about. Chapter 3. Using the dark persuasion methods. Imagine that the behavior that you are trying to change is safe driving, and you want people to wear their seatbelt and not run through the red light. There are different ways that you can try to influence people to drive safely and wear the seatbelt and not run through the red light. First, you can put cameras so that if you run through a red light, it will take a picture of their license plate and they will get a letter in the mail with a $100 bill for running through the red light. That is one way you can persuade people not to run the red light. So you'll be watching them, and once they do that, you will punish them with a $100 fine. The second way is for you to hire a famous celebrity, an outlet, or a TV star, or a musician to say something like, "Safe driving is important. I always drive safely, and I always put my seatbelt on. So if you want to be like me, then you should drive safely." The third way to do it could be to rationalize people's mind and say that when you stop at a red light, a 50% reduction of accidents does happen, and when you wear your seatbelt, you're 60% less likely to be injured in an accident. Now, these three examples represent the three different mechanisms of influence that we are talking about in this section, and each of them can be effective. If you think about the examples you have probably seen, each of these examples are used in advertisements because all three types can be very effective under different circumstances and for the different audiences when trying to persuade them. And the three types produce different types of behavioral change. Three basic processes of social influence produces these different types of behavior change, and the processes, which are called compliance, identification, and internalization, and let us talk about each of them. Compliance. The first type is called compliance, and that is the form of influence that we accept so that we will avoid punishment or get rewards. And that's the kind of influence we get when we are under surveillance and somebody is watching us. An example of this is when we stop at a red light because there is a red light camera. We don't need to believe that stopping at the red light is a good idea or that driving safely is a good idea. It's not like we want to be like somebody else who drives safely, or we are stopping at a red light because our mom stops at a red light. But we stop at a red light because there is a camera there, and if you don't stop, you will get a ticket. That is accepting influence so they will be able to avoid punishment. Sometimes, you can accept influence because you're going to earn a reward. You can make children do something so that they will earn a reward even though they don't necessarily believe in the behavior and their attitude doesn't change. It's just that you're watching them, and since they are going to get a reward or get a punishment, they will comply with that behavior. Identification. The next step of influence is called identification, and that is where you accept influence because you want to be like someone who is trying to influence you. An example of this is the old commercials from the 90s of being like Mike, and they were talking about Michael Jordan as a basketball player. That is a classic example. They just said that if you drink a certain drink, you're going to be like Mike because Mike takes the drink too. This is very effective because people wanted to be like Mike. Now you see this every day with the Kardashians or Rihanna. Rihanna is signing brand deals to sell cosmetics and beauty products because people want to be like Rihanna, and they will buy the same products that she uses because of this process of identification. In this case, you don't necessarily believe that the drink that Mike drinks is the best or tastes that good, but you want to be like Mike. So it is not just the content of the message that you believe, but you will accept the influence because you want to be like the person that is doing the influence, or be like someone that the behavior is associated with. This is why celebrity endorsement works very well, because you want to be like celebrities, or you want to have their kind of life. So you use the products that they endorse. This kind of influence is only effective when the relationship is candid. Michael Jordan can persuade many people to buy new Nike shoes or buy any drinks he endorses. So that is identification. Internalization. The next mechanism of influence is called internalization. And this is where you accept an influence because the behavior and attitude are consistent with your own values. And you accept this one not because you want to be like somebody else, but to avoid a punishment or get a reward. Instead, you accept it because it is satisfying to you that the behavior that you are avoiding or the attitude that you are adopting is consistent with your own values. And after some rational deliberation, you can internalize the attitude and make it your own. After all, you like it as a part of you. An example of this is anytime you accept influence as a result of rational persuasion, where somebody makes an argument, brings up many statistics, and your review does evidence and those statistics, and you come to the conclusion that you will accept those arguments because they are consistent with your beliefs. Now you are accepting the reasoning, and you are accepting the evidence as valid. You're accepting the speaker as somebody with credibility who has the expertise and is telling you the truth, and so you will change your attitude or your behavior as well. For instance, in the driving safety example, you may have read an article or blog post that shows a documentary that talks about the way dangerous driving leads to death and accident and disabilities, and how safe driving saves lives and saves money. So you internalize that value and take that behavior as your own because you have been persuaded. The thing about internalization is that we will act to the behavior wherever the issue arises itself. For instance, if you adopt safe driving through the process of internalization, by internalizing that attitude and making it part of your own, you will drive all the time safely. You will stop at every red light, whether there's a camera or not. It is because you have internalized the attitude and behavior, and you will drive safely all the time. Whenever the issue is fancy, we will produce that attitude or behavior, which is the difference between compliance, where you only comply when you're under surveillance or identification, or where you only adopt a behavior when the relationship with the other person really wants you to. These three mechanisms require different sources of power that someone who is persuading you can use. For compliance, the kind of power that the new person needs is the power to produce the rewards and punishment. The reason why the local state has the power to persuade us at the red light is that they have the power to put off the cameras and they have the power to find us or take away our driver's license. So if you have the power to produce the reward or punishment, then you can use compliance as an effective mechanism of social influence. This is also why our boss has control over our rewards and punishments at work and can make us comply with rules at work because they have the power. And they have the means to punish us or the means for rewarding us, and that is enough to make us comply even the rules that we don't believe in. There are many rules that you don't know you are following at work, but you comply with them simply because you're under surveillance somewhere. And the person that is doing the persuasion has the power to reward or punish you. That is a source of power for compliance. Now, with identifying the source of power is attractiveness. So anyone that you find attractive has the power to influence you using identification. For instance, if you look up to Michael Jordan and he's your hero, and you think he is the greatest basketball player ever, and you're attracted to his basketball and athletic skills, you will want to be like him. Anybody attractive to you because of their achievements or their physical appearance or their wealth, you will give them the power to influence you utilizing identification. They know that you want to be like them, so they will exploit that power to influence you. And that's the mechanism by which the Kardashians influence people to buy products that they sell because people want to be like the Kardashians. They want the lifestyle and the glamour, so they use that attractiveness as a source of power to influence people to do what they want. If you want to use internalization as a mechanism of influence, then you need to use credit as a source of power which lies behind internalization. Credibility has to do with trustworthiness, trust, and expertise. If somebody has credibility, you will trust that they will tell you the truth, and you will think they know what they're talking about. So if you're trustworthy and you're an expert, you will grant them credibility. And for somebody to use internalization as a mechanism of influence, they must have credibility. This is why we usually use experts to do persuasion about health behaviors. You hear health experts saying that you must use sunscreen to avoid sunburn and skin cancer. And instead of bringing a celebrity to do that and using identification, they bring a scientist or a doctor who treats skin cancer, and he uses his credibility because he's trustworthy. These are the ways that credibility rationalizes and persuades you to change your attitude and your behavior. All these techniques are very valid social techniques. So if you're trying to decide which techniques to use, try to examine the kind of power that you have. Are you attractive to your audience? Then use identification. If you have the power to induce reward and punishment, then use compliance. If you are capable of setting up surveillance to make sure that people comply with your behavior, then use that to comply people to influence people. If you have tremendous credibility and they're full of arguments on your side, then you can use internalization. All these social influence techniques are actively using the reward technique. If you look all around you and you turn on the TV or the radio, or you check the internet, you will see all these types of manipulation used all the time to sell different products and different ideas. All of these can be very effective. Now, in some sense, internalization is the most effective technique because it produces the most lasting behavior change. For instance, if you want people to eat less meat, you can decide to keep them under surveillance all the time and threaten them with punishment when they eat meat, but it might not work very well. Also, you can decide to get a beautiful movie star to say something like, "I'm a vegetarian and you should be like me." However, the problem with both of these techniques is that once the person is not under any surveillance to eat meat, or as soon as the thought of that movie star is out of their mind, they will eat meat. So if you persuade somebody using internalization, then you don't need surveillance. You don't need the relevance of a movie star or a celebrity. But whenever they eat, they will be persuaded, and since they have internalized it as part of their own belief system, they will refuse to eat meat. And whenever they eat it at all, they will want to be vegetarian. Since they have been persuaded by the mechanisms, those attitudes will come up, and they will decide not to eat the meat. This is the advantage of internalization. But it is difficult because you need to have credibility. You need to have the argument on your side, and most times, people are not that open to internal persuasion. So if you look at the world around you, at politics, and at different issues in the world, you will see that rational persuasion does not always work. And that is why all these mechanisms like compliance and identification are being used. Now, it's possible to use all three techniques on one thing or on the same group of people, like in cigarette smoking, insurance companies, or on anyone that has to pay for your health care doesn't want you to smoke cigarettes, so they use a form of compliance to do so. Insurance companies and your body can offer a reward or punishment in the form of higher insurance premiums or lower insurance premiums if you don't smoke. And they can test your blood or urine to see if you've been smoking cigarettes. So you can use compliance as a method of persuasion to discourage people from smoking. You can also use identification and get a famous celebrity or someone who is famous to talk about how they quit smoking, and how it's an unattractive habit and the power of attractiveness, and people will want to be like the celebrity they love and they want to be like them, and since they don't smoke, they will stop smoking to be like them. Also, you can offer a rational argument by saying smoking, lung cancer, kidney cancer, bladder cancer, colon cancer, and even heart disease and stroke, so you can give people some sort of statistics to tell them to stop smoking by telling them that it costs a lot of money and it makes them smell bad. You can also get a credible scientist or public health expert to talk about those arguments, and they will normally do all these things because smoking is a huge health problem. Now we have used all three mechanisms of social influence to produce all the behaviors that we're looking for. Mind control psychology. Let's play a game. The first word is soup. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word soup? The second word is beer. What is the first word that comes to your mind when you hear the word beer? And the third word is Paris Hilton. What is the first word that comes to mind when you hear this word? Associations. So we'll be talking about mental associations. Your mind normally takes certain thoughts, certain ideas, and certain emotions and puts them together, which is called associations. In this section, we will talk about how advertisers use these associations to brainwash you. Advertisers want you to feel a certain way about their products. They want you to be able to create an emotional association with a product like McDonald's, so they use the word, "I love it." They also want you to create an association with their product and with something that you feel good about. So many beer pictures have hot girls in them. Guys feel good about hot girls, so they will feel good about the beer. In psychology, it is called conditioning. Conditioning. Conditioning is the process in which you create an automatic stimulus response in a person or animal. Now let's take the conditioning of a girl on a beer can. You already have a certain way that you feel about the girl on a beer can. So you take your beer and the girl, and what the advertisers want to do is to transfer the emotion over to their beer. So advertisers want you to think about the girl, beer, and sex as one thing. Each one is different. But if you think about sex, you will think about beer. And if you think about the girl on a beer ad, then you will think about the beer. Behaviorism. It is obvious that sex is exploited every day in advertising. The branch of psychology that is used to change somebody's behavior is behaviorism. It is called behavior conditioning techniques. Conditioning is a behavior modification technique that advertisers use to make you buy their products. They tested this using 2 children. They put a hole in their chips and attach a device to catch the saliva and enjoy it for the moment. They want to know if they can condition a human being like a dog. Now, the most influential American scientist is John Watson. He did an experiment where he took a baby and showed him a white rug. Then he started making white noises behind the baby to scare him. Eventually, the baby started associating white rats with the scary experience. Now he was not only afraid of the rat, he was afraid of anything that was furry, and in psychology is called generalization. Several studies and theories have been used in advertising today. That kind of shit happens all the time. Chapter 4: The Dark Side of Marketing Psychology. Everybody likes to think that they are not affected by advertisements. Unless you have not seen a single advertisement in your life, your daily choices are normally influenced by all the advertisements that you have ever seen. Every decision you make is being influenced by those advertisements. An advertisement changes your opinion on a product. You may see some advertisement where you think, why would anyone decide to buy this product if they see this? The purpose of advertisements is not just to have the consumer pick up the phone and buy the product, but to inform the consumer about the product and its features. The reason why companies like McDonald's advertises is because they want to be their customer's opinion and correspond their brand image into their customer's mind. There are too many psychological methods that marketers use nowadays for the advertisement. So, in this section, we will talk about how businesses utilize psychology and lead people to stay longer in their stores and buy more of their products. Overall, we know that businesses are made to make money. There is nothing really wrong with that. But to maximize profit, most businesses try to use tactics that are based on psychological principles. The mirror method. The first method is called the mirror exposure method. This addresses the bare-a-bone advert that makes you scratch your head and wonder why the company will spend thousands of dollars on them, but you have to realize that people are more comfortable in groups. If one line is longer than the other, people will go to the long line because there must be a reason why people chose one line over the other. They think that one line is better than the other, or that the other line is more correct than the other line. It is a very comfortable decision for people. By exposing the consumer to the brand, most humans will start thinking that they know it, and so when the consumer goes to the store to buy the products, they will reach for the product. Sometimes, the product might be a couple of dollars more than the store brand, but they will buy it because they know that the brand detergent works well. It won't be such a good brand if it doesn't work well. A great example of this is with painkillers and other over-the-counter drugs. In the pharmacy, generic brand drugs are the same products with the name brand and with the exact same composition of ingredients. But they have a different composition of ingredients. They will not be allowed to be called the same drug. But people will still buy the one with the higher price because it is easier to choose what everyone chooses. The consumer tends to be anxious to buy the cheaper generic brand. Now, does it mean that they should always buy generic drugs? Not necessarily. In research, some patients were given two drugs. At first, they were told that it is a more expensive popular brand, while the other one is a less expensive non-branded drug. And when the patient took the more expensive drug, they got more results than when they took the cheaper drugs, when in reality, both of them were the same solution. Their expectations were higher for the same brand drugs. So the patients felt better. The other psychological method that marketers use is the classical conditioning method. This method came from a Russian physiologist in the 1890s. His dog was salivating whenever he enters a room, even if he didn't carry food, because the dog had an expectation that he will receive food whenever the man came into the room. After all, whenever he had food, he walked into the room. The man wanted to change that, so he started ringing a bell whenever he gave food to his dogs, and after some time, the dogs salivated whenever they heard the sound of a bell. Because the dogs have started associating the sound of a bell with the food, they were trained to have the expectation of food. Now, this same principle works with humans. Companies try to create certain feelings or images associated with their products. If the advertisement shows a certain image in conjunction with the product, soon enough, the consumer will subconsciously relate the images to the product. And it always works. No matter how much you try to block out the advertisement, as long as you see them, you will subconsciously relate it to them. Car brands are one of the biggest people that use this technique. Most times, the advertisement doesn't have anything to do with the car or somebody driving the car. So instead, they will show people pulling up to a red carpet event, or they will show some adventurous-looking couple driving on some dirt road. They know that their customers are not looking for buying a car, but they're buying a lifestyle. They're buying into the image of somebody that goes into a black tie event or spends their weekends being adventurous. The car brand matters at that point to them because it is the image that the customers are buying into. Labeling things. The first and the silliest example is labeling things as a conclusive or limited edition. This is a very effective tool for businesses because the scarcity of any item immediately increases demand and perceived value. This is why companies make companies wait months for their products when they paid $1,000 for it. And airlines and hotels do this too. Have you ever been to a hotel and they said that they only have one room left at a certain price, but when you use your cognitive browser, it shows that there is no limit at all? By telling you that there is a limited supply that is running out, it will make you think that if you wait longer, you won't be able to get on that flight or stay in that hotel, and that fear of missing out makes you feel pressured to be impulsive. So you decide to buy before you are ready. Almost all companies also let us talk about our amusement park, keep us there, and make us eat their food. Apart from the fact that they don't allow you to bring in your own food, so you are forced to buy overpriced food, they also do strange things to make you think about eating even when you are not that hungry. For instance, Disneyland tries to put in specific smells throughout their park so that it will make you hungry to eat. This works because when you are becoming hungry, your body will intensify its senses of smell by activating the receptors in the brain. And it does this to make it easier for you to find food. Now, if you think about it, this makes perfect sense if we were still living in caves, where we were still hunting and gathering food. Our sense of smell helps us to find the food that our body needs more quickly. But Disneyland uses this knowledge to their advantage and tends to pump in a smell of waffle cone being made or hot dogs being fried to give you the time to think about the food that you want and decide if you're going to eat it. They also try to spray scents around the food canteen to give it an authentic feel. But the amusement park doesn't stop there. They also don't intentionally have shaded spot for you to sit at and rest unless you make your way into a food court, and then the thing that they layer on the park make it so hot in the summer. That is why people move into the air-conditioned food canteen to hopefully buy fruit. Disneyland has its AC cranked up so high in one of their shops, and it is the only shop that sells sweatshirts because without the psychological manipulation, who will ever think of buying a sweatshirt in a sunny day? The foot in the door technique. The next way that businesses use these psychological techniques to their advantage is the foot in the door technique. This technique was created after a study done by a freshman in 1966, which shows that if you say yes to something small, you will probably say yes to something big. For instance, if somebody asks you, "Can I borrow a couple of books?" you are much more likely to say yes to something larger. As long as what they are saying are similar in nature, you will struggle to say no to it. So the acts have to be similar. For instance, the person cannot just ask to borrow some books and then ask you to do his assignment for him. Now, this technique works because of cognitive dissonance, which makes you believe that you don't want to be contradictory to what you are doing. It's just like you don't have any evidence that clashes with the way you believe yourself to be. So this technique also works in a reverse way, meaning that if you say no to a big task at first, then you are much more likely to say yes to a smaller task. For instance, if a salesperson asks you to buy a line of beauty products, and after you say no, the person then asks you to buy a $10 lip gloss, you're much more likely to say yes to the $10 lip gloss, and this is called the door in the face technique. It is a technique that was researched in 1975 by Dr. Robertson Irene. He claimed that this technique works because of the principle of reciprocity, meaning that if you say no to a much larger task first, you will feel that you owe the person something, and therefore you will say yes to smaller tasks. Chapter 5. How Dark Psychology is Used in Relationships. Both men and women get what they want using dark psychology in relationships all the time. So in this section, we will talk about how both men and women make use of dark psychology to manipulate and influence the opposite sex. Dark methods that women use to manipulate men. Safety, significance, and worthwhile. They do it through safety, significance, and worthwhile. The first thing that they do is to make you feel safe because when you're out in the cold and your boss yells at you and you get offended and you're on the way home and the traffic was awful, you know that somebody is there waiting for you to comfort you. So women may make you feel safe and secure, and you may feel like, isn't it nice to have a woman that will take care of you? So that is one thing they do. They make you feel significant. Now, when the second thing they do is to make you feel significant, and they do that by saying, I love you, I need you, and I believe in you, you are everything to me, how I never do anything to hurt you, I am your best friend, and you are my best friend, and you can count on me for anything, I got your back. So they make you feel significant. Make you feel like the king of the castle. The next thing is that they make you feel like the king of the castle, and you're worthwhile. They become your number one cheerleader. They tell you that you can do anything, and you can get a new promotion, and when you feel so great about yourself, you will like to be with them. So they really use loving words. These are all elements of true love because true love makes you feel safe, makes you feel significant, and makes you feel worthwhile. But then, when the true love is being used in a wrong way to take advantage of somebody, that is manipulation. And they also try to make you feel worthwhile, and then they make you feel cocky and hot. And once you get hot, it's hard to walk away. And that is when the safety, significance, and feeling worthwhile really kicks in. Dark methods that men use to manipulate women. This section will show you how you can get out on a date to meet new guys. You probably have a self-help book, but for some reason, you get stuck up, tripped up, used, abused, and left brokenhearted, and trying to pick up the pieces of what you did for the last 2 to 3 years. In this section, we will talk about the method that guys use to manipulate even the smartest girls. The method of mirroring. This is the principle that most men use to manage and get into your heart, your bed, and your life. First of all, they seek you out. Men are hunters, and you are their prey. So someone that looks cool approaches you, sits down, and asks you some questions, and you are taken aback by their romantic gestures. They buy you a drink, and they take you dancing, or maybe even deliver some flowers to your home or to your office. And before you know it, you are now telling them everything about yourself. You are now telling them that you like dogs or that you're allergic to cats, and you like kids and your career goals. You also tell them your religious views and whether you do yoga or you meditate, or whether you are into yoga and what your astrological sign is, and everything else from the top of your head to the tip of your toes. But what you don't realize is that everything they have done is to give them the way to manipulate you and guide you into their arms, and it is called the mirroring principle. They're going to use every freaking thing that you have spelled out against you. They will tell you that since you like dogs, then they like dogs. They will tell you that since you like football, they like football too. They will tell you that since you love cats, then they love cats too. If you tell them that you love to go to the ballet, they will tell you that they like to go to the ballet too, but then you will realize 20 years after you're married to them that you have never been to a ballet. But what you don't realize is that you are a victim of mirroring. The BS they tell you to win you over works, but then something else happens, and when you wake up with the person and you realize you are stuck with them just like the way they are stuck with you. They don't like to go to the ballet, they hate New York, and they can't stand how much money you spend on clothes. They will never figure out why you think family is so important, even though you have adamantly expressed to them in the first year that you guys were together. But then you get into a freaking mess, you get into a relationship with a stranger because he is using the mirroring technique against you. Now the mirroring technique is very good in a job position, but it is not good for you to use it. It is good to narrow their body language in a job interview. Shut your mouth. Now, what should you do when someone is using his technique against you is not act fake or lie, but to be smart. You like the guy, but when he approaches you, you shut your mouth. When you're trying to pick a lifetime mate, the two most important questions that you are ever going to ask yourself is where are you going and who are you taking with you. So if you have spilled out all your personal information and they are marrying you because you are absolutely fabulous, then you're not going to get the real deal. So what you should do is pull back and put on any emotional mask and let them talk. And eventually, they are going to spill their guts to you. They will tell you that their life is kind of chaotic, that they want to have a good time, and they don't really know what they want. And because their life is kind of chaotic, most times you won't listen to that because you were too busy selling yourself. Because of your low self-esteem, you're trying to tell them how wonderful you are, and how low-cut your dress is, and how much education you have, and then they drop you because you aren't listening. So put some kind of neuron and pull back a little bit. Follow your heart. Follow your attraction, but use your head. Let them feed you with all their life happenings. And if you let them sit there long enough and smile sweetly at them and don't interject your thoughts to them, then they will tell you the truth. So therefore, you can get them to go home and either pencil them into your black book or put him into your cell phone, look him up on Facebook, or keep moving. Because you don't have time to waste on a crip or on someone who is using the mirror of your true self, your loving self, your adorable self to be manipulated and lied to, you should look in the mirror and see all the great qualities that you have. You don't have to oversell yourself. You don't have to manipulate him into bed or keep him interested. You don't have to ask him to marry you. It is all BS. It is all crap. Because you are not your true self, and your true self is just what everybody wants. Always remember that you should follow your heart as long as it is not above your head. You remember not to get manipulated by men. Subliminal messaging. Now let us talk about subliminal messaging. These are messages that are designed to go undetected by your unconscious mind and to be understood by your conscious mind. This sounds sneaky because it is sneaky. Many companies have been doing this over the years, all the way from soda companies showing sexy ladies on the bodies and making you feel like if you drink that soda, it makes you sexy, or to make you feel happier, healthier, and have a healthier relationship. Companies do use many sexual references, whether it is the way that the bubbles arise, though so that when somebody drinks, it just is to get you to think about sex because sex sells. There has been tons of research behind the music of their commercial, and the research shows that using words like hungry or buy is very powerful. And these words pass our conscious mind and is heard by our unconscious mind. We can be influenced, and that is why we need to stay mindful of the people that we are following by knowing why we are following them. If following someone only makes you feel like you need to buy more things, then maybe it is time for us to unfollow them because after knowing about how businesses get you to spend more money on their product, You shouldn't underestimate the power of marketing and psychological research. Because they are utilizing all these tools to make you make a purchase, and we are being marketed to all the time from both TV and social media, there are advertisements everywhere, so you should try to be cognitive about what you are buying and why you buy it. Ask yourself, is it because you feel influenced by what somebody said or did, or is it because you actually need to buy that item, or is it something that you have been saving up for and you want to buy it? So there are certain things that you should put in place so that you will be mindful of what you buy and why you are buying it. Chapter 6: Using Dark Psychology to Manipulate a Man. In this section, we will talk about how to get really good at being bad and how to utilize the dark art of feminism to get ahead, get what you want, and isolate yourself from people that are going to hurt you. It's time to turn the tables. That is, if you are tired of being manipulated or lied to, cornered or swindled. And all you need is in your head and your heart. So we'll talk about some of the things that you can learn. This section will talk about some ways to make a guy wait for you. Now, we are not talking about making a guy crazy. We are not talking about making the guy not have a sense of self. We are not talking about destruction. We are just talking about making the guy emotionally weak for you to the point where he reacts when he hears from you. Up to that point where he can't be normal around you, and that is the meaning of what it is to be attractive when you make a guy weak for you. He gives everything to you, and he's willing to do almost everything for you. Now, these things are manipulative, but they work. Lust. The first one is lust. It is not just about lust, but it's about how to manipulate a player and how to crush a fuckboy. We'll talk about some bad psychological events that you can use to your advantage. Because it is time to turn the tables around on people that you have been manipulating you. Oh, most men are very simple, and they're very one-dimensional. Guys are very easy to understand, so if you learn how to read the signs, you will be twisting the theories and your facts to suit you. You're not reading the writing on the wall and knowing that he doesn't like you, or he's a cheater, and he's not going to leave his wife or girlfriend, but instead, you choose to see what you want to see. Instead, choose to believe that he's properly treating some incredible, complex, emotional scum on you, whereas you were just your own enemy. You were the architect of your own misfortune. So it's time for you to get out in front of this. We are talking about the tactics of men, but these tactics can also be applied to women. Play seduction war strategy. Let's talk about war strategy. War is meant to keep your enemy off balance and to be unpredictable, and seduction is war. Robert Greene talks about the world of seduction, and he says that the person that you are trying to seduce is a victim, and that is the way you should think of the men that you want to potentially seduce. That you should not think of them as a potential boyfriend or a guy who wants to fall in love with you. If you are trying to make a guy who doesn't like you fall in love with you, then you are digging your own grave because you're going to lose big, because the person who cares the least is the person who wins, and that is the foundation of human interaction. If you care the least, you carry the power. If you look at yourself in a situation looking for a job where you are fresh out of college and you need the job, and you're tired of driving and leaving your dad's basement, then your boss doesn't care because thousands of you are looking for the same position in the company. So he's not going to negotiate for shit because he doesn't need to make deals, but you care a lot. But it doesn't really care a lot, so he has the power. So it's the same thing in seduction. When you're trying to manipulate somebody, you need to divorce yourself from your feelings as much as possible. That is why if you're trying to manipulate someone, then that person should be someone fresh. You shouldn't lie to yourself where your heart stands because Robert Greene also said in his book that you shouldn't just know yourself, you should also know your enemy. You should know exactly where your enemy position is and exactly the machinery that they are using, because if you don't, you won't be able to predict the outcome of anything. So if you feel really strong about somebody, you need to abort the person because it is going to go bad. It isn't saying that you can't get revenge about somebody, but you need to let the emotion dust and settle down. Otherwise, you're going to make no neutral decisions. So you have to pull back and look at it mutually and make a flowchart. You need to be able to evaluate things mutually and not allow your emotions to get caught up, because when you are emotional, you are easily manipulated. But now you are trying to be the manipulator. Use your shadow self. So here's what you should do. You should try to use your shadow self. Shadow self is the dark and the unseen side of everybody that society doesn't validate or that we're too shy to express. For instance, if your guy tells you that he wants to work in fashion, you can press on that weakness because it's his weakness and it's his emotional underbelly. So when you use that thing that he exposes to you against him, when an animal goes hunting for meat, they don't target the tough part, they target the soft part. So that is the same thing you want to do. When you want to manipulate him, you should play into that. You can also ask him to help you pick out your outfit or let you guys go into the house show or the fashion exhibit, so you should ask his opinion and make him feel valued in that category and make him feel like an expert. Build up his ego and then you remove it. All that has to happen when you don't like him very much so that you will have him by the throat. So you have to be neutral and don't allow him to sense your weakness and then keep on pressing him. You have to know your own army. You have to know what is your shadow self. You have to know what is not acceptable in your family, in your group of friends, in your hometown, or in your society. What are the things that people have rather overlooked in you? So you have to identify your shadow self, and that is going to make you more bulletproof in terms of being manipulated, because when somebody says something bad about you, you can say, "Thank you. After all, you're not surprised, since it is not a hidden side of you." Shift your shadow self. Your shadow self can shift. So how do you do this for a fuckboy? Fuckboys are on the whole bottle, and they are so hard to break. If you can get close enough to them to sense their weaknesses, but first, you have to start with their family. You have to provide what his family did not provide for him, and you have to replicate the craziness in his family. But do it right, because normally as human beings, we are not drawn to people who make us happy, but we are drawn to people who feel familiar. There have to be some elements of familiarity, because if you grew up in a happy family, then he is familiar with happy things. If you grew up in a toxic family, then it is not. That is why you see people in codependent relationships, where they are mutually abusive to each other, but both of them refuse to break up because it is familiar to them. If he didn't have stability with his family, then you should give it to him. For instance, if he is all by himself with his family, and you decide to take care of him, he will be surprised, and he will be in the palm of your hand. He will do anything that you want him to, because as human beings, we move towards people who remind us of our parents, because we are trying subconsciously to do the relationship over, fix it, and do it right. You also need to be very careful about your endgame. You shouldn't be too fixated on whether he likes you or not. So if you're trying to get a guy to fall in love with you, then you will lose. You have to define what success looks like to you. If you want to get back to the relationship, you have to understand what the endpoint is. If not, you will just be going, and you will exhaust all your troops, and you will have a huge catastrophic loss of life. So you have to know what the point is before you even know if you reach it. If your goal is to make your guy love you, then it is dangerous because you are emotionally caught up in it. If you love him and he doesn't love you, then you're not in a position of power, because he who cares the least wins. Now, aside from the shadow self, you need to be able to engage in something called trauma bonding. It is very important to keep your enemy off and to keep your target and your own victim off so that they won't be able to predict your behaviors. If you're incredibly moody, you'll be very good at this. Be careful about what you are establishing. If you can establish a parent-child dynamic in your relationship and then you become codependent, that is not fun. Because you are just in the cycle of mutual manipulation, it is really toxic. To define what success, revenge, and destruction looks like to you, and then work backward at it, and then, when you reach that point, you can capture the castle and retreat. Now, revenge won't always feel as good as you think it will. It will feel good when it comes in terms of rivals and work, but with love. It is like a losing game, because you are emerging energy and attention that is no longer feeling you. You don't know what your last stand plan is, and that is not what you should be spending your time on. Become inconsolable. And if you guys are not talking, you become inconsolable. And when you guys are talking, you start seeing through time. And you'll become so happy and so addicted. And it goes on and on. It's like a psycho on drug use. So what you should do is that you should give and you should take. You should give him and then you should take it away. One thing for you to do is be fun and engaging. Listen and then lie at the same time. And it will make a guy feel like a man. You should know how to use charm and sweetness on him. So you should be wonderful when you're on a date, and you should be different when you're on a date. You shouldn't write back right away for him. You shouldn't reply back to him with emojis, but you should text him something at the last minute. You want him to get addicted to real life and not addicted to texting or to Snapchat, because that is what builds a relationship. Don't DM you for 2 days straight. You should give him and then withdraw and then try to create that trauma bond. So if you want to manipulate somebody, this is what you want to do. So to recap, you want to hold on to somebody's shadow self and then replicate familiar patterns. But what the healthy spinner needs, and with this comes a resolution that they are looking for on a deep psychological level, and then you want to throw the bond and you want to give him and then take it away. You want to overwhelm his senses of flattery and that he's so smart. You have to make him feel good because he's not going to remember what you said, he's going to remember how you make him feel, and he's going to want to replicate that like a drug addict. But you have to walk backward and figure out what it is that you want and realize what destruction means to you. And if you can't execute this literally, don't do it. Don't wait until the feeling is mutual. But don't lie to yourself about where you are because you are not taking an accurate inventory of your arsenal, and therefore you cannot weaponize what you have because you don't know what it is. The door in the face technique. The first one is the door in the face where they start big and then they go small. They will say, for this project that I'm doing, I need a $100 donation, and then when you say that is a lot of money, they say that you misheard me and they will say that I need just $1 donation, which is nothing, and you will say here is the money. Have you been manipulated before? Manipulation is influence without consent, but you have consented to that request. Nobody ever sees that they were manipulated into buying food at Whole Foods. They will say that you make me eat healthy, so being influenced by someone is not a bad thing. There are positive outcomes of manipulation, but when you are not aware of the deal, then it is evil. A classic case of manipulation is in the workplace, where your boss has some work for you, for instance, and he wants you to work an extra hour. So you say yes to him, but you need to go out tonight later on. But 1 hour then turns into 2 hours, but he never told you that it was 2 hours, so now you feel angry. You feel like you had been manipulated, and rightly so, because it was influenced without your consent. It is just like when someone hands you a contract. You do not read the small print, but because you were not ready to read it. You didn't read that, but it was in the contract. Most times, the trait of manipulators is that they are hard, sensitive, dishonest people. Most of these people aren't flexible when somebody is coming from their ha-ha space. They are honest, they are sensitive, they are receptive, and they are listening to your feelings, your opinions, and your desires, and they are taking that into consideration. Most times, manipulators' aim is to seize power and control, but ultimately, their aim is to make you unaware. In the media, the image that you see influences you without your consent because they are working on your subconscious mind. Feign weakness. So the first tactic that you can definitely use is to feign weakness. Now the reason why this is so important is that when you feign weakness, people will lower their guard. They don't want to come at you full force to allow themselves vulnerable for counterattacks. And when you feign weakness for a guy, he will say, I have got this girl, she texted me back and she commented on my status. So feinting weakness is playing to your femininity. It's like saying, I cannot resist you and I want you to be mine. What happens is that when you play the little girl that loves the guy and you back off, the guy will think that he had control and now he has lost it. He doesn't want to have control and lose control. If you won't feel as if you lost anything, and it is another thing to feel the control and enjoying the control of a woman and then seeing the control being taken away. Now the only way for you to do that is to give him a little bit of introduction to how it will be like to have somebody at fault with them. We, the natural tendency as human beings, is to take people for granted. So, as a result, he will feel like he has you. He will think that he can just come to your house and have sex with you because he already has you. Now you break that pattern by then backing off and make him ask himself, I thought I had her, but I didn't. Be inconsistent. Another one is to be inconsistent. This means that he won't know what to expect. Don't be reliable, be contradictory. Now when you are consistent, people will not be able to figure you out. When you are inconsistent, you will frustrate people. When you are inconsistent with people who always want to understand you, and that is the place that you want to get. Because when you are attracted to someone, you have some element of fear because you don't know if you're going to offend them and you don't want to lose the validation. It is valuable to you. So by being inconsistent with the man, you don't make him relax and say that he has you. You make him think about, does she like me? So 1 second you may be texting him on time, being consistent, and showing a lot of attraction, and then the next second you are totally different. You are ignoring his text messages, you are consolidating him, you are angry at him, criticizing him, and then the next day you're happy complimenting him. That inconsistency will make him think about what is going to happen tomorrow. Now, if you provide some form of emotional pleasure, both physical pleasure, he will stick around, and his justification for sticking around is we will do the thing. He will justify it and say that he will try to be there with you and try to understand you and try to know what is wrong with you. So by being that inconsistent, he will want to figure you out because you're already in his head. You want to create a space in his head to create an actuation. And the way to do that is through being weak and making him think that you like him, and being inconsistent and make him think that you are fucking crazy. Now, these tactics are preparing the emotional and mental playground so that you can make him weak. So get into his head, and once you get into his head, you can play with him. Now, insinuation is an attack on his insecurity. For instance, you can hit hard on somebody and it won't hurt the person. But if there is a scar in that person's body and you hit the person hard, it will hurt him. So this is the scar in his life is like insecurity. It is something that he represses through his desire to be masculine. Insulation will make him feel insecure, and as a result, will make him chase for validation. You want to insulate being subtle. If he's a masculine guy, say that you love guys who are not masculine. So you talk about somebody that you find attractive, and he knows that you don't look like that guy, but then you change the topic. You don't elaborate on it because it looks too fucking obvious. If you want to deceive your enemy, you have to be subtle. So you should talk about something that you know that he will work on his ears, and then you can change the topic. You don't even need to give him time to ask you to elaborate. You don't even give him time to ask you to elaborate what you said, because as the time finishes and you create some space, it will make him think, oh, what did I do wrong? He will say something like, I don't think she likes me, and then the space that you have created with him will make him think, I think I lost her, and that is what you want to do. He will feel that desire to get validation, and that is how you open up the emotional space to make him fall for you. Because he will say that he needs you, he thought you liked him, and he will feel insecure. And because he doesn't know how to fix it, he will somehow come to you, and you can do this in other ways. Insinuate that you like guys that are masculine, or that you like guys that are organized if he's not organized. Say that you love guys who have a clean place, and then change the topic. Compliment him. Now the next way to make him weak is through a compliment. Don't just compliment him. Give him a compliment that is based on an actual weakness. A weakness that you stared up, and a weakness that you intentionally brought up onto the surface. If it is something specific, and something that he has worked for, it will inflate his ego, and he will love you for it. For instance, if he's a basketball player, and he's a very good basketball player, and people know him for dumping people, and then he also wants to be a businessman, which do you think of the compliments that he's going to like more? Is it the basketball compliment or the business compliment? He's going to like the business compliment more because basketball people are obviously stupid to most people, and that's the insecurity that he has. So complimenting him on an area that he's already insecure about is going to make him thank you. And if you make it specific to him, it's going to inflate his ego. And if you make it something that nobody has noticed, he's going to like you for it. Make comparisons. The next one is comparisons. Compare him to other men, and you will see how he will become obsessive with you. It makes him jealous, and it will increase his perception of you, which will make you more attractive in his eyes. Now, the attraction is not based on reality, it is based on perception. After all, we all have this will in our minds because we see our mind through our emotions. Now, when you compare him to other guys, it will stir up a feeling of insecurity and emotions below his reality. So if you make him insecure, you become his source of validation. Compliment him by comparing him to other guys will make him feel insecure, and he will try to please you. Now, this is the aspect of pleasing you from the competitive way, not just wanting because you are beautiful, but because other guys want you, and want you because you said all the guys want you, and they want to possess you. Now, when you compare him and talk about other guys and say that they're so cute, he will claim that he's cute too, and that is what you want. It is not like you want him to say who is a bitch or who is that guy. You just want him to say, I am cute too, because that will make him crave for you, and that is when you suddenly attack him. So you prepare the ground and then attack him. Now, it is all about perception, and it is not all about reality. In business, it is not about the facts, but is the perception of the facts that really matters. Set the bars. Now, the next one is to become the person who sets the bars. Don't make it easy on the guy, make him striving for you to become difficult. Become the person that sets the bar wins. You can create the barriers by saying no or saying don't, come baby, or going too fast. So simply creating barriers puts you in the place of power. If somebody tells you what to do, you feel the difference in value. So if you feel like you're losing control, react and say no. Set the barriers by telling him something like, I think I like you, but I think we should be friends. I know I can't resist you, but I think we should be friends. That is a barrier. Break up with him. The next one is to break up with him and tell him that I don't think we should see each other and I don't think this is working out with each other. The next one is when you know that it is raining and you are alone. Tell him to come over and hang out. Intentionally ask him to hang out with you during difficult times. When you make him sacrifice himself, that will be creating the barrier. So when you create that barrier, you will make it harder on him, and when you make it harder for him, it will make him work for you. And people tend to value what they work for more than what they don't work for. So intentionally bring your friends over when he comes over, and make him be the one that strategizes about how he's going to make your friends leave. Intentionally tell him that you guys can hang out that day, and tell him that you want him to hang out on the day that he is busy. So when you make it so hard for him by setting those bars, you make him want to jump. And he's going to justify himself that he's doing all of it for you, and that justification will make him like you more. Because whenever you are investing in someone through the emotional and physical effort, you are justifying yourself. You are saying to him that you are worth it if he's doing that for you. Make him feel desperate. The next one is to make him feel desperate and scared by creating some space. Space will create doubt and fear and enhances your image, and doubt and fear to enhance the enemy's perception. When somebody fears you and doubts you from a place of not trusting, it enhances your perception. Because fear enhances the enemy when you are afraid of something. You exaggerate their abilities, and you see them more than they really are. When you create space, he will think about whether or not you like him, and by creating space, you will make him think about you. He will start fantasizing about you and the little pleasure that you provided him, and he's going to think about those times and is going to want it more. He will think about what would happen if you had that one more time. He will start to add your lies, but for that to happen, you, first of all, have to do those things by comparing him to other people. And by creating space for him to think about you, and space for him to wonder, and space for him to feel secure. In addition to that, you have to create space, but it doesn't reveal who you are. He may think you're bored because you are creating space. He will say that he forgets how you are because you are unpredictable. Sometimes you're active, and sometimes you're not active. So he doesn't know whether you have lost interest or if you're just crazy. And he's going to give you the benefit of the doubt because he likes you. Because you are providing that validation that most women don't give, and you're complimenting him on something he's weak about. The space will make him respect you because he hasn't yet figured you out when people understand what you like and don't like, and that is when you can control them now. Creating that will make him think that he doesn't fully understand you. When you create space, he is not going to know why you're creating that space. If you don't give him too much of you, he won't make basic assumptions as to why you're not hitting upon him and why you're not creating that space. He is not going to base it on his insecurities and fears. He will think like he has lost you and your value in his eyes, and he will want to become more attractive in your eyes, and he will want to look for any form of validation because he's looking for somebody to believe him. Turn him off and make him desire you. Now the next one is to turn him off and make him desire you, and then back off and make him chase. For instance, if you guys are in bed, tell him to let's go and get something to eat. The reason why this works is that he's already horny and he's weak. He wants you already, and he's already in a frame of thought. And because you are dangling the pleasure, he's going to chase you. Just like when you were a kid and you were promised a surprise reward, he's going to be with you. People's willpower reduces whenever they feel something or whenever they are in a state of desire. So you want to dangle what he wants in front of him, and then turn him on and tell him that no, he can't get the cookie unless he does certain things, and when you guys are outside, he will have the desire to have you, and then you set the barrier. Isolate him. The next one is to isolate him. You can isolate him through different ways from his thoughts and worries. Everybody has weaknesses. Everybody has thoughts that they are afraid of. So when you isolate him from his thoughts and worries, he will become worried, and when he is worried, you will make him feel validated. You will make him feel strong, and that mental isolation from his problems is going to enhance his perception. So when you dangle the pleasure in front of him, that is what is going to make him think about, and then you can create some space, and he will start thinking about you. Provide pleasure, and he will follow you and get dumped in your world, and it will make him weak. Invite him out to your house, and invite him out to eat with your friends. Putting him in places where he doesn't know will make him want your validation because you will find you like the comfort zone. Create an enemy out of his parents. Create an enemy out of the world. If you want to isolate someone, create an enemy and they will become isolated. If they see the world as an enemy, they will run away from it. Create an enemy, say you have a goal, and he will help you out. To identify what he wants and help him to achieve that. Go help him recognize something that he likes and help him to fulfill it. So you want to isolate him so that he will rely on you to help him with that. So you should become his source of validation. Tease him. The last one is to tease him when he knows that he cannot get you. For instance, if he is in California and you are in the East Coast, Skype him and send him naked pictures of you and pictures that are provocative and tell him what you want to do with him. With that, he's going to realize that you guys can't do this because there is the distance between you guys, and then come back and shows more pictures, and then turn him on, and then back off again. What is working is not that you are showing him the picture, but it is the fact that he cannot go through the screen and touch you. So that's the thing. It's the teasing part where you tease him. You are exciting him and validating him and creating that bond in space where he wants. You do not fully satisfy him, but you are giving him a little taste and backing off. And that's going to make him obsessed with you and make him feel weak. Chapter 7. Dark Psychological Tactics to Make Women Fall in Love. These techniques are annoying when they are used against you, and they definitely work. That is why we want to talk about these techniques, and hopefully, you will be able to use it the right way and not use it to break people's hearts. That is why we are going to be releasing some dark psychological techniques, because these techniques are things that you use when the opportunity arises. These are forms of manipulation, and they are different ways to fuck with people's emotions because you are manipulating people in a certain way. Now, manipulation is not a bad thing because when it comes to sex, you're manipulating the way that the person feels through the way you stimulate them. So we manipulate people in other ways, but this is just an advanced level of manipulation, and you already use these techniques. But it's just that you are not aware of them, and because you are not aware of them, you can't replicate them to produce a higher and more efficient result. This is one of the things that guys struggle with the most. When a guy finally gets a girl interested, their mind is blown away. They feel like she's amazing, and they go overboard, and they become needy and scare the girl away. You can use this tactic if you have a relationship that you feel is not going well, and you can also use these tactics if you have girls that offer their friendship with no benefit. If you keep constantly getting girls and you keep losing them the next day, or if girls are not as interested in you, then these tactics will make girls fall in love with you. Now, making girls fall in love with you is not as fun as it looks. So if you use these tactics correctly, you will have girls that want to be around you, and if you have never heard that before, it will be a very weird experience because you will notice that it will get old after a while. Having girls wanting to be around you and wanting to see you all the time is not as fun as it looks. So getting girls to fall in love with you might seem pretty, but once you have a girl that is all over you, it may not be as fun as it looks. So this is some dark psychological tactics that you can use on them. Choose the right victim. The first step is you have to choose the right victim. You have to choose the right woman. You can't choose a woman who is happy with her life or who has high self-esteem or feels confident for herself because they have to be a need that hasn't been met in her life. To make a woman love you and become obsessed with you, you need to find where she is vulnerable and become that source of validation for her. It is very rare for you to see somebody that is highly confident in them to fall in love with somebody obsessively. It is very rare. It's only people that have low self-esteem and needs validation that becomes obsessed with their partners. For instance, if you dated a girl that is out of your league, you are simply going to have a tough time letting go of her because she has become the source of your validation. People like her because you were with her. So you need to pick a girl who doesn't have much going on in her life. The less busy she is, the better. Now, this might sound dark, but it is dark. You really cannot use these tactics on everybody. So you have to choose the right victim so that you can be the person that sweeps her out for feet. So pick the right guy. Make sure you pick a guy who is willing and open to loving someone. Pick the right guy. Pick the guy who is isolated and doesn't have a lot of friends. Now, this sounds dark, but this is the best way to do it. Make sure that the person doesn't have a lot of friends, and make sure that he is insecure. Make sure that he needs emotional fulfillment from his past or his current condition. There needs to be a need because if there is no need, then you cannot step in there and create it. Most of the love that people experience is not really love, but it is more of unhappiness manifesting itself through the desires of other people. That is why people that are depressed have the desire to fall in love because it has become a drug. So you have to find someone who is vulnerable, who is open, and who is trying to seek something to fulfill it. And you can look for people who are coming out of rebounds from relationships. you should also have to make sure the person lives close to you. You have to make sure that there is some proximity between both of you, because people who get married are people who normally live close to each other. Send signals to her. The second one is to send signals to her. Make her feel as if she has you, and then take it away. To make a woman fall in love with you, you have to make her feel the loss of losing you. Have you ever noticed that when you feel good, nothing is wrong, and then a girl sends you a text that said she wants to hang out with you, you immediately feel like meeting her up? Now, because she likes you, you can actually want to meet up. However, when she texts you and then says that you guys cannot meet up, you will start feeling down. In the past, you didn't want to meet her, but when the opportunity came, you felt like you gained something. But now that you have lost her, you feel like you want her even more. You want her more than you initially wanted her. So by making the girl feel as if she has you, and by showing her attraction, it will make her confused. Because you are acting like you really like her in person, but through text message, you sound bland. If you send a friendly message and you tell him what you are up to and he says nothing, it will look like he is going to be really pissed off with you. However, when you meet up with him in person, he might be the funniest person in the world. Show that you like her. Another way that you do this is to show the girl that you like her. Take her on a date and actually treat her well, but then do the total opposite and back away from her. Now you're making her feel like home. You took her out on a date, but then she's confused because after taking her out on a date, you're not talking to her again. By backing away from her, it makes her become confused that you don't like her again. Send mixed signals. The second thing is to send mixed signals, hot and cold, push and pull. In one other word, 1 second you are showing interest, and then the next, you don't show any interest. 1 second you text him with a whole bunch of moody content, and then the next second, you send him a second happy response. So send mixed signals. This will make him think about you. It will make him think about whether you are actually attractive, and because of that, you are making him think of you, then that will make him attracted. He will invest in your electrical energy, and he will become attached to you. So sending mixed signals is actually good. Have a pre-selection. The second one is to have a pre-selection. Hint that there are other guys interested in you, and that you want to hang out with another guy, and that you want to hang out with some of your best friends. Just make sure that he knows that you are doing it. Show pre-selection and talk about another guy in front of him in a friendly way. Talk about the other guy casually, and that is going to make him think. Guys are very territorial. This may not seem like it is going to work, but if you are sending mixed signals and talking about another guy, he's going to stay up jealous, because we are not just jealous of something that we don't want. Create tension and discontent. Now the fourth one is to create tension and discontent. Make sure that he feels some form of her unhappiness with his life. Make sure that you create a form of conflict in his life, because when you create that, you become that source of happiness and that source of comfort for him. That is why it is good to find the right person that, because if his life is fucked up and his family is going through torments, then you will be the perfect person to be around him. So if there is no discontent and he is very happy and fine, then create it. Talk about his goals. Talk about his goals and what he hasn't achieved in life. Talk about the things he hasn't done in his life, and make sure that you create that emptiness in his heart so that you can come and fill it for him by encouraging him and giving him empowerment. Engage in his deepest narcissism. The next one is to engage in his deep narcissism. Pretend that you like the things that he likes. If he likes playing basketball, then go and play basketball with him. If he likes to meditate, go and meditate with him. If he likes reading books, go read books with him. The point is that you should do the things that he loves, and it will make his ego feel happy. Engage in his deep narcissism, praise him and talk about him, because when you do that, he will like you more because not many guys are praised, and not many girls show interest in the things that guys do. So when a guy finds a girl that is really doing the things that he loves, it creates some form of attraction in him and a bond. So try to engage in his deep narcissism. Find out his fantasies. The next one is to find out his fantasies, his weakness, and find out what he always wants to do. Find out all the crazy things that he wants to do with a girl that he hasn't done, and hint at the fact that you can make those fantasies real. And suddenly, you will become an object of his fantasies and an object of his dreams, because there is nothing wrong with becoming an object. We are all objects of self-esteem to each other. Your dog might be a source of happiness for you, and you might be an object for your dog because you feed the dog. There is nothing wrong with saying that you're an object, because we are all objects. It's just our ego that doesn't like to realize the fact that we are all objects to each other. Use your words to confront his insecurity. The next one is to use your words and confront his insecurity. Know what he is insecure about. If he is insecure about his body, use your words to make him feel good, use language, and use it for your own advantage. Encourage him and empower him to make him feel good about himself. Once you become a source of self-esteem for someone, they won't be around you. Once you become a source of happiness for someone, they want to be around you. And nothing is more debilitating than a man's self-esteem or a man's insecurities. So if you can shoot his insecurities, he will turn to you to boost his ego, and that will create a form of attraction and attachment. Pay attention to details. The next one is to pay attention to details and give him thoughtful gifts. Pay attention to the things that he likes to do, and attention to the activities that he likes. Ask around. Ask the people that love doing the things that he likes, what do they love, and most likely, they will want that too because those are similar passions. When you fulfill that thing that he loves, even if it is something as simple as basketball, you'll be able to shock him. Prioritize your presence. The next one is to prioritize your presence. Associate yourself with poetic images and objects so that when they think of you, they will begin to see you through an idea. Do not overexpose yourself when you are with him. Be with him 100%, and when you're not with him, don't be with him 100%. Make him miss you. Don't ever expose yourself, because that is the biggest error that people make. The reason why they do that is that it's hard not to be around them, and this is what you should do. People who do this are people who are not interested in you, and that is why you become interested in people who are not interested in you, because they display the characteristics and behavior that causes you to be attracted to them. Disarm your targets. The next one is to disarm your targets. Show him vulnerability, which is another word for showing him that you are weak, and talk about your insecurities. Make sure that you come across as vulnerable. The more sympathy and lust he feels for you, the more he will love you. Make him feel like he can help you out. Make him feel like you can improve his life, but make sure that it enhances his ego. If he enjoys working out, then start working out with him. Thank him and tell him that, I had insecurities about my body, but ever since I've been with you, I don't have that anymore. So thank you, you were amazing. Compliment him for something that he was born with. Don't compliment him on his eyes. Instead, compliment him on something that he worked for, like his abs that he worked for. Don't compliment him for his accent. Isolate your target. The next one is to isolate your target. Make sure that he doesn't hang out with his friends anymore. Make sure that he doesn't hang out with his family anymore. Make sure that you can take him on vacation and take him alone for a few days or a few weeks. The more isolated and the more they're in your environment and in your comfort zone, the more he will become attracted to you, and he will find comfort in you. That is why he has to be someone with low self-esteem and insecurity, because the likelihood of him doing that will be higher. Because someone who has low self-esteem and is very scared might come to you, but not that much, because he is not in his comfort zone. Do not isolate them completely, but isolate them when he's with you. Make sure that he's with you alone. Make him talk about his childhood pains. The next one is to make him talk about his childhood pains and comfort him. Be there and make sure that they feel it. When somebody talked about the pain when they had when they were a child, a lot of their childhood gets displayed by their behavior that they currently display. So you can help him feel better about something in his past through listening, not just finding a solution, but showing physical comfort and physical emotion by bringing him close to you and making sure that he cries near you. So talk about something that hurt him and make sure that you comfort him and make sure that he feels good. Make sure that you allow him to know that you are going to be there for him. When you do that, you will become powerful, and it will create so much attraction between both of you, and he will tell you that you are so sweet. So make sure that you comfort him with something from his childhood. When someone is insecure about something that happened in their childhood, then they are likely to be your victim. Stir up the taboo and the transgress. The next one is to stir up the taboo and then transgressing further to take him more than he can imagine. This is why people find it exorbitant and a general rush from extramarital relationships. They love that because of the guilt it creates. So when you have an element of danger and an element of getting caught, that element creates a bond between you and that person. That is why the best places to go on dates are amusement parks, because it can make that person become attracted to you. Give him a unique experience. The next one is to give him a unique experience with his passion. For instance, if he likes smoking weed, then you could have sex with him smoking weed. You could say, I know you like smoking weed, so let's do it together, because you want to make it an experience with him. If he likes reading books, perform a sexual act with him while he's reading a book. If he likes playing video games, then perform a sexual act with him while he's playing video games. Complete his passions with something sexual, and the reason why is that he is being engaged in something that he loves. So when you get into that picture by simply being there stimulating him, he will start associating you with those emotions. Now, one technique is not going to do it at all, but by combining all these techniques, it is going to have a huge effect on him. Mix pleasure with pain. The next one is to mix pleasure with pain. Sometimes you have to make him feel guilty and insecure, like those dysfunctional relationships where the couples fight and then they break up. That is what you were talking about. So you should consciously make it happen. Talk about something that he is insecure about and that he likes in his life. Make him feel adequate and then apologize. Make it up. Now what is happening is that you are pushing him away, and because he will still have some ego attached to you, because you insulted something that he is insecure about. You want his ego to be validated. Apologize and make sure that he knows that you're sorry, and then bring him back in. That will create the bond and the feeling that he has for you. The more clarity, the better it is. The next one is that once you feel like you have pushed him away, tell him that you are getting bored. Once you guys have gotten it to that level where he's becoming good, push him away. Have a premature breakup. Tell him that maybe you should stop seeing each other away, like, baby, I don't think that this relationship is going where I think it is going. Note that this poses some risk to do, because he might not want to see you anymore. But if he does that, then it means he doesn't like you. But if he likes you, then he will not want you to leave, and it will increase his attraction to you. And once he is back with you, he will feel better since you are his source of happiness, and he will fall in love with you. It is amazing how it can work. That's why when a girl breaks up with a guy, his attraction to that girl increases. When you tell somebody not to see you, the more the person will want to see you. And it is a very good technique to get somebody close to you. So if somebody is attached to you, and you want to make the bond stronger, break it up so that they can become attached to you. Just like if you break your muscles down, it will grow back stronger. And the same thing happens with love. Never allow him to take you for granted. The next one is to never let the other person take you for granted. Use absence, pain, and conflicts to keep the fire going. Remember, the best relationship is not the one that people are always happy. The best relationships are the ones that have highs and lows, but if you are smart, you will learn how to manipulate it. It is important to show that you are vulnerable, because if you don't show your vulnerability, he will think that he needs to help you with something. That is why it is good to show that you are vulnerable, and that you are weak, and that you also need help. What is going to happen is that it will flourish the love that he has with you and the ego, and you will make him addicted to you. You will become his source of self-esteem and a source of happiness, so use this wisely. Have contrasting core qualities. The next one is to have contrasting core qualities. If you have the appearance of a young boy, you want to have an air of evil and sexuality around you to give you that contrast. If you look very masculine, you want to have an air of femininity so that your qualities will cancel it out. When you are too masculine, it will show your insecurity because that is overcompensation. So by having a balance of masculinity and femininity, then it will give you that air of trust, but then you have a contrasting quality, it will make you look edgy. So if you are a very masculine person, try to have a spiritual side to yourself, and don't be obvious about your spiritual side. Be subtle about it and communicate it subtly. Don't allow her to find you that you're meditating, let her find out on her own. Allow her to know that you are a meditative person through your Instagram. So the point is that you want to have the quality that will make her say, oh, I can't actually imagine that he did that. If you see somebody like Kanye West being nice to his wife, you will think he is actually a nice guy. Triangle of desire. The next one is to create a triangle of desire. Talk about other females that you admire. If she's a blondie that has nice tits, you should talk about other women that you find attractive that have dark hair and nice breasts, or talk about other women that are the total opposite of how she looks. Talking about other women that look exactly the opposite of how she looks, that woman will become her competition. Now, that person doesn't have to be real, the person could be a celebrity, but the point is that by simply letting her know that you are admiring her against her type will make her competitive. Also, try to make female friends hang around you so you'll be able to create that little competition. By having that triangle of desire, it causes pre-selection and raises your value as an individual, and you need to make this up, so you shouldn't make it too obvious. A good way to do this would be to go on Facebook and post a music video of the girl who you think looks opposite of how she looks, and then say something like, "Oh, I love the way she looks." Don't even tag her. Just let her see it on your social media and she will know. Because girls know about their bodies, so it will make her want to be around you more because of the pre-selection. Inflict pain. The next one is to inflict pain. Do not be afraid to inflict pain on her. Most guys are afraid to inflict pain on a girl. They are afraid to offend a girl. Do not do that. Now, this isn't about doing it intentionally. It is talking about when it actually arises, you should not be afraid to offend her. Because if you are inflicting pain on a girl, then it means that you are inflicting pleasure on her. When she doesn't like you, she becomes indifferent. She sees you as a nobody. Your compliments don't mean anything to her, and your insults don't mean anything to her as well. But when you can inflict pain on her, she's going to think that she actually likes you, because by simply inflicting pain, it means that you can also elevate her pain and bring pleasure to her. So by simply being okay with offending her, it shows that you have power over her. Criticize her. Learn how to criticize her. Criticize her about the things that she's doing wrong, and don't be afraid to piss her off sometimes. Because once you can piss her off, then you are not validating her. So the strategy is to piss her off or criticize her, and then validate her as someone that needs validation. It might be a skill that she is not good at, so you can validate her and tell her that she's good at that skill. Now by receiving that validation from you, since you got a rejection from you, it will look better to her. If you are an athlete and you are getting criticized by a reporter, you're going to value that person's compliments a lot more than somebody who has always complimented you because you know that the person is always complaining about you. Insinuation. The next one is the act of insinuation. It's all about planting insecurities at a subconscious level. Let's assume that she's not a passionate person, but you can suddenly tell her that you love passionate people. You might say something like, I love women that are passionate and women that are pursuing their goals. So talk about something that you know that she cannot meet during a conversation and then quickly change the topic. For instance, if she has big breasts but she doesn't have an ass, you could say something like, oh, I love girls that have a big ass, and then change the topic. Don't even allow her to elaborate on the topic. Because by insinuating that you love girls that have a big ass, you're putting it as a seed in her subconscious mind so that next time she will think about it in the shower. She will feel insecure, and since it came from you, she is not going to attribute it to come from you, but she will want to get that validation more from you. So you're planting the insecurity that only you can meet, but you have to do it subtly. Like for instance, doing it in a conversation where she's thinking about what to say next, so that she doesn't really know about what you were saying, but it's been registered in her subconscious mind, or use the word when she relaxes, like when she wants to go and sleep, and when she's just chilling. If you do it in a relaxed way, it'll get into her subconscious. This is a great way to get into somebody's mind and look at it so that the person will seek validation from you. Set up challenges and barriers. The next one is to set up challenges and barriers. You want to make the relationship look nice and spicy. So most times, these things can save a relationship. You guys can have sex in your room all the time, but if you want to have a much better sex life and give her an experience that she will not forget, try to tell her that you guys are going to have quiet sex because you have a friend coming over to the house. By telling her that you guys are going to have quiet sex, she will feel that it is wrong. Or tell her that you guys are going to have sex in a public place, and she will feel like you guys can't let the public see you in a public setting. Those intentional challenges to her are great because most times, some relationships get too boring. You can also make it difficult for her to have sex with you by making sure that some risks come with being with you. Certain challenges and barriers can make the interaction way better, and it will also make her choose you. For instance, you can have girls sneak into your apartment and it will look like you actually have a roommate when you don't have a roommate. But you're acting as if you have a roommate and you're telling her that you guys have to be quiet. So doing that will make you guys feel as if you guys are back to your childhood. Create temptation and tease her. The next one is to create temptation. Try to enjoy teasing her. Most women are not tempting enough. Guys don't turn to women because they are thirsty. For instance, you can meet up with the girl and make it look like you're about to have sex with her and then just leave. When you are doing this with women, they're going to appreciate you. Women love being teased, especially when you are doing it intentionally as a game. She's a girl, and because of that, it makes the interaction so much better. She might say something like, "Why did he leave? He always enjoys teasing me," and that anger and frustration will make her want you more. The temptation will make her want you more. You have to remember that pain is good. It is not bad to make women associate you with pain. It is actually a good thing. The thing is that by simply becoming the source of pain and creating temptation, That will make you more attractive. It will make you have to have an aura around you that most guys don't actually have. As long as you are clearly communicating that you are teasing her, she's going to love it. And it will also make you unpredictable, and it makes her chase you, which is a powerful thing. Give thoughtful gifts. Don't just give gifts that anyone else can give thoughtful ones. Try to listen to what that person is saying. Listen to what she's saying and what she loves listening to and what she loves. Most people don't know how to make a gift unique and creative to the point that she says, "Wow, I didn't know that you knew this about me." For you to find this out, go to her Facebook, go to her Instagram, and find out what she loves, because everyone is individual, and everyone leaves clues about what they love. The reason why you should give her a good gift is that you want to make her feel as if she has you. It makes her feel as if you were thinking of her, but once you have given her the gift, back off from her. That is a mixed signal that you are giving her, and a very thoughtful gift to tell her that you really like her, but when you back off to really confuse her, that state of confusion is where you want to be, because that makes you able to influence and manipulate her. Take a step back. The next thing is to take a step back. You have to learn how to take a strategic step back. In the first stage of a relationship, you should take a step back. You should not show interest in the beginning. During each phase of the relationship, you want to be able to take little steps down and up, because if you take only one step going up, it will not look realistic. It is much more realistic to have a relationship going up and down. You show her that you like her, then after some time, you show her that you have lost interest. And then, once you lost interest, she gains interest. And once you gain interest back again, you lose interest. So the only way to have that up and down in a relationship is to take some steps back. So at the beginning of a relationship, you shouldn't show interest for them until 6 months down the line. Then you should show interest. Most times, you feel when a relationship is going off because the person is no longer touching you as before, and you guys' conversations are no longer interesting. So the way to make you seem disinterested is to avoid sending too many text messages before having a long conversation, or not talking much to her. So take a little step back, because she is going to feel it. And once you feel that she's seeking validation, then you can reward her with more attention. So you are rewarding her for the action of chasing you. Learn how to take subtle steps back at the beginning of the relationship, but make it simple. And when you make it up, you want her to interpret you. You don't want her to fully understand, so that her mind will be able to create the images of you. Arm her with vulnerability. The next one is to arm her with vulnerability. Most times, guys don't know how to use these tactics because they look very obvious. So by showing her a part that you are weak, and showing her a part that you need help with, she'll be able to take her to see the real human being in you. For instance, if you have the vulnerability of being unable to control yourself around women, and then you take a step back, it won't seem strategic, because she already knows that your nature is that of an uncontrollable person who cannot resist women's beauty. So because she knows that you cannot control yourself, she will know that you don't do it consciously. Your vulnerability might be sadness, depression, or being addicted to something, or being angry. So by having a fault, it will make her try to fix you. So let's assume that you are a sad person. You can make her want to make you feel better. So with that, you are mixing lust with sympathy, which will help to create love. For instance, if a woman really likes you, you get into an accident, and she comes to the hospital for some days to help you out, she will start to fall in love with you. So try to put yourself in a weak position. But to do that, you have to let go of the masculine part of you and to embrace some femininity, because the masculine doesn't allow you to do that. So don't be afraid to show that you are weak. Don't be afraid to show that you have a weakness. Embrace it, and that will help her to become attracted to you, because it will make you look like a human being. It is a very easy way to disarm her. Trying to be uncomfortable around her shows her that her beauty is too much for you. Being uncontrollable around her and showing that you can't resist her charm is already charming. Every woman wants to be admired, and every woman wants to be praised. So by showing your inability to control yourself around her, it will show that you are weak, and to show that you are uncontrollable, and it will enable you to hide the tactics. So when you show that you cannot control yourself around her, and you're acting like a child because of her beauty, it will make everything that you do appear honest and spontaneous. Because if you cannot control yourself, then it means that everything that you are doing comes from the moment, and it is much more adorable. Give her some space. The next one is to give her space. Women fall in love with you when you are not in love with them, and it will happen in their imagination. If you're always around her, she won't be able to imagine you or have an image with you. So you have to be ready to back out from her sometimes and give her some space. Once you back off, it will make her start thinking about you. You have to realize that your imagination tends to exaggerate whatever is going on in the present moment. So if she feels depressed and starts thinking about you, then it is going to enhance how she views you. And because it is going to enhance how she views you, she will love you more. You have to remember that you shouldn't pick a happy person. You should pick somebody that is depressed, and by doing that, it will give her time to actually process and analyze you. Giving a girl space is one of the most important things that you should do, and most guys don't do it. Now, when a girl doesn't see you often, it will cause her to become more attracted to you, and it will also allow her to chase you, and it will make it look like you are not needy. So by simply giving her space, it will increase her chance to fall in love with you. Engage in flattery. The next one is to engage in flattery. For instance, the biggest form of flattery is imitation. Everyone has an analyzed perception of who they are, so she will love you if you embody the kind that they are. For instance, if the girl likes you and a part of her loves doing yoga, and she has a profile picture of her doing yoga, it shows that she really enjoys yoga. So you should do yoga with her and show that you enjoy it. To her, you'll become more than just a person, you will become that person that she knows. You will become a representation of who she is, and that is flattery to her. So by you saying that she has positively influenced you, it will enable her to actually want you more, because when she's with you, she can see the realization of who she is, and you become more than just any other person. So try to engage in your deepest narcissist because women love themselves. That is why you see women posting videos of their boyfriend achieving their goals on their Facebook profile. Don't let her take you for granted. The next one is to not let her take you for granted. Use pain, pleasure, and absence to motivate her so that she will appreciate you. Most times, the relationship goes down because of overstimulation. So try to back off and let her appreciate you by giving her space and inflicting pain and pleasure on her. For instance, break up with her and then take her back on. If you feel like she does not appreciate you, then break up with her and tell her that you don't feel like the relationship is going the way it's supposed to go, and you're not happy in the relationship anymore. Make sure that you guys don't see each other anymore. Once you do that, she will feel the loss and she will need some validation from you, and she will try to get the validation from you by initiating what you guys did. And the love that she's going to have for you will be much more than before. Now think about it, most of the girlfriends that you have, you like them more because they broke up with you. Passion with sex. The next one is to combine her passion with sex. For instance, if you know that you smoke weed and no girl that you've ever had sex with does, but this girl does, then you're going to remember her. Also, if you play basketball and she touches your dick while you're playing basketball, or she does any sexual thing while playing basketball while people are around, then she is trying to mix up what you really love with sex, and it will cause that connection between both of you. So, always find a way to combine what she likes with sex. If she loves to read, find a way to combine reading with sex. And because of that, she will think about you because you have struck a fantasy of hers. So, because you combined what she loves with sex, it will make her put you in a different category in her mind. Make her fantasy a reality. The next one is to make her fantasy a reality. Find out what her secret fantasy is and make it happen. She will become obsessed with you. Find out what her fantasy is and do that, because if you can fulfill her fantasies and do what she loves in sex, she will love you for that because you're not only used to her emotions, but you are also onboarding her fantasies. The more fantasy it is, the better, because it will put you against the world and it will become your own little secret. So look for the fantasy. Most guys aren't actually looking for a woman's fantasy, so look for her fantasy and make it happen. Have boundaries. The next one is to have boundaries. Make sure that she feels your boundaries, because once a woman feels your boundaries, that is when she will like you. For instance, if a woman visits you from another state and she doesn't want to pay for anything, tell her that you guys are splitting the bills in half. By telling her that you guys are splitting the bills in half, she might feel awkward because she didn't expect that. But because you're placing your boundaries on her and you stop there, she will feel your power. If she litters your house and you don't like her to litter, tell her that you don't like her to litter your house. If you say that she's going to fill your boundaries, then it is a really powerful thing. So qualify women according to something that you actually love. For instance, if you love reading books and somebody tells you that they don't like reading books, you will react negatively because you have a passion for reading books. So by naturally reacting to her not reading books, she will feel like you are disapproving of her. So you have to remember that they must certainly be all this interest, and mixed signals are the better for subtle communication. You want her to interpret that you are not, so by using natural qualifiers, it will work on her. If you see that she reads books, you can actually reward her, which is the best way to qualify her. To find out the things that you naturally appreciate in women, qualify her, and care about the answers because her subconscious mind is going to be wondering if you're qualifying her or if you're disqualifying her. And she's going to feel that you have values and you're not just talking to her because of her looks, and then the next one is to isolate her. Do not be needy. The most obvious one is to not respond right away to her text message. If she text messaged you and you are in a conversation, do not respond immediately. Just because she texts you does not mean that you need to respond within 10 seconds. Give her some time. Now don't be ridiculous and wait for 4 hours. Try to respond respectfully, but give her some time. Give her like 10 to 15 minutes, or give her an hour. Now, when it comes to text messaging, don't be the one to always initiate the text. Wait for her sometimes to text you or start the communication. Don't get into a routine where every morning when you wake up you say, "How are you?" or "Good morning." Let her be the one to initiate the text message, because when it comes to getting into a dating relationship, it's very good not to be texting yourself all day. You guys should always be meeting yourselves ahead of having a text message conversation all the time. You guys should be meeting up and connecting with each other physically. Now let us talk about phone calls. Most times when you are dating a girl, you are always calling her on the phone. So always try to be the one ending the phone call first. With that, you are trying to tell her that you are not needy, and you have a life, and you have other things going on in your life. Now as a guy, you need to have those other things going on in your life so that all these things are a real life. Introduce FOMO. Now another thing that you should do is to introduce FOMO, that is fear of missing out, by sending her pictures of things that you are doing, which is fun and cool. Now don't do this all the time, because if you are sending her text messages or every day like you are doing cool stuff and you're not inviting her, she will be angry. So every once in a while, like once a week, send her a picture of something cool that you are doing, and she will say that she wishes to be with you doing that thing. So eventually, when you invite her to do something fun, she will be excited that she's going with you. One way that you can do this is to post cool stuff on your Instagram stories or post your stories on social media to show that you have a good time and that you have a life and you have other things going on. Now, after the first date, don't set the second date for some days. It's okay on the first date to say that we should hang out again. I would love to see you again. This was very fun, but don't actually go on a date for some days. It's not because you had an amazing first date that you should rush to have a second date. You want to back off and release some pressure and give her some time to miss you. Give her some time to process how much fun she had with you and how much she is attracted to you. You want to give a gap of 2 or 4 days before you set out for the second date. Now when it comes to a dating relationship, if you really like the girl and you want to see her for her, then try to only see her like 1 to 2 times a week. Take it slow, and you might also be dating other women to see what is going on and see if you connect with other girls. So try to see her only once a week so that you will have it more spread out until you get into a very serious, committed relationship with her. So you will see her 2 times a week. This is so crucial and so important, usually just playing those games. But you should have some things going on in your life, things going on with friends, attending events, and stuff to do. Go to meetups and create your own events. Have a life of your own. It is going to be very easy when she asks you what you're up to. You will say that I'm busy and I'm doing this thing and let us hang out another time. So you're actually doing something, and it is going to make her like your social life because you're actually doing things. Chapter 8. The Abuse of Seduction. Dark psychology is an unethical abuse of seduction. Persuasion is a science, and that is why people who are the biggest douchebags in the world get tons of girls. Dark psychology is the science of seduction being leveraged in an unethical manner, especially when it comes to abuse. Emotional abuse at the core is the abuse of seduction science. They choose the right victim. One of the principles of seduction is to choose the right victim. If you want to pick a female victim, then she can't be somebody who has a high degree of confidence in herself or a high level of self-esteem. It has to be somebody with a low self-image and somebody who is seeking approval and somebody who wants to get out of her situation and who can find that particular type of person. You also want somebody who lacks confidence and somebody tired of their life and somebody who is looking for a way out. Such a person will make her a perfect target for dark psychology. When your self-esteem is compromised, and when you have low self-esteem, and you're looking for your way out of a situation, and you need to escape from the situation, then that will make you thirsty and more open to advances from people. Because you are looking for validation, and you're looking for improvement. So it will open you to a wide variety of people to date, and that is great, but it also increases your chances of being taken advantage of. So having low self-esteem, low confidence, and just getting out of a failed relationship and looking for an escape will paint the target on your back for an abuser. Because an abuser will come in and create the illusion of insecurity and the illusion of genuine love by giving you affection and establishing trust and making your bond with them, but they will not bond with you. So that is the grooming process that they go through. They don't necessarily bond with you, but they make your bond with them. So if you want to manipulate somebody and control somebody, you have to use dark psychology on them. Then you have to pick the right victim. Because if you pick somebody that has a lot going on in their life, they are going to tell you to get the fuck out. So you have to make sure that you pick somebody quiet, somebody who is in a bad place, and somebody who is looking for happiness and doesn't know where to find it, and give them that happiness. Because when somebody is happy and looking for happiness, and you place a happy drug in front of them, he will grab it with both hands. You will become their love dealer and their affection dealer, just like you can elicit somebody on a list of drugs by freebasing him or by giving him the first drugs. So you make him high a few times and tell the person that you like taking drugs with him, but it costs you money, so the person should help you out. So the person will be able to feed your addiction, and before long, he will want more drugs, and he will do anything to get it. And other random things start coming up as you're trying to feed his addiction, and emotional abuse does precisely that. Emotional abuse that's into the same mechanics that the abuse cycle goes. An abuse cycle uses exactly the same cycle as smoking cigarettes and gambling. An abusive relationship is an addiction, and it is legal to do. Some people like to be on the winning side of it, and they are. So that is the first step of dark psychology. You have to be able to pick the right victim, know how to identify your victim, and you have to know what to look for. You have to know this so that you don't paint the target on your back. This is why you keep getting narcissists. Narcissistic people know how to identify the right victims who are not. Make sure he doesn't have high self-esteem. He doesn't have the confidence, and you're not in a happy place, you have issues. So you are taking full advantage of that by building your confidence by giving you love, affection, and by getting you out of a bad situation and making the situation better. So you should sweep them off their feet and then drop them on your ass to be able to get you. Dark psychology has to do with what makes people attractive. Seduction is an exact science of dark psychology. Jack psychology is a perversion of seduction and his ethics are questionable. However, it can be used for good because this attraction build is that when you use it ethically, it will give you a wonderful and a fruitful relationship, but when used in an unethical manner, it will keep the abuser crawling back for more. As you are abused even harder, you will keep crawling back. The fucked up thing about this is that it makes the abuse feel good. Triangles in dark psychology. Let us talk about what triangles are in dark psychology. There are manipulation tactics called triangulation, and it is the case where there is another person in the picture, and the person is there for some reason. There are some people that, whenever they go out, people are interested in whom they are with. They have a month, or Raj and the Flying Monkeys, they have a crew, or they have a posse, and they have the people that follow them everywhere, and it makes them look like multiple people have desired them, and once you've called the boyfriend or girlfriend, you as the victim will get the feelings of validation. So when you are with somebody popular and they have a montage, then it makes you feel validated because out of all those people, they chose you and you're number one in their life. And you are their number one best flying monkey. Now, we are very aware of people who are outcasts. They don't have anybody in their life, and there is a reason why there is nobody in their life, because they are probably crazy, toxic, or unhealthy, and we will try to avoid them. So by creating a triangle, you will be able to do several things with it. If your abuser has a triangle, you will be able to extract validation from it. So you will think that you are a good person or a better person for being their number one. And it will keep you on your toes because you will think that this is somebody that you can potentially use. The abuser, on the other hand, will make it like they're having a tough time deciding between you and someone else, which will make you work harder because now that they feel validated with you, they feel special. And you have this forced insecurity with somebody that you don't want them to be taken away. And since you don't want to lose this, you become more competitive and create an imaginary competition. You feel like you're competing with somebody, whereas you are being drawn along. So that is one of the ways of building the bond and building the attraction that keeps you in the abuse cycle. The bonding and the attraction is what perpetuates the cycle, because as long as you know how to keep their attraction high and the dopamine response high, they will do it again and for a long time. As they're able to do, the cycle will be able to repeat itself over and over again, where you keep making decisions that go back to the abuser. So just be aware of that. Abuse that can have 2 or 3 or 4 phones, where they can just enter the other numbers and change the context on it and use it to create a fictitious triangle with a fictitious account with somebody that you have never met in person, and they are texting the person. The person may not even be a real person, and may just be an abuser creating a fake triangle to make you work harder. Females' dark secrets, using the power of seduction. In this section, we will discuss how to use dark psychology to get a sugar daddy. The best way to get the most out of a sugar daddy is to make him feel like he is going to get you naked. Obviously, you can decide to sleep with him is not a saying if you decide to sleep with him. However, that isn't your main goal. So to get what you need from him, which is your monthly allowance and everything paid for so you don't have to keep on worrying, you have to make sure that you let him think that sex is going to happen. You let him think that you're going to sleep with him. And the way that you should do this is by doing this. When you meet up with him, flirt with him. The idea is to make him feel like he's your boyfriend, and he is so attractive in your eyes, and make him feel like he is the man, and makes him feel like he is amazing. Treat him the exact way you will treat somebody that you really love if you were really dating that person. So the way to make him feel like he's the man is to be flirting with him, touching him, and being very feminine. This means you should giggle, and even the way you talk should be softer. So as you are doing these certain things, you want to be making sexual signals, and that is the whole seduction part. You're making sexual signals, you're touching his legs, and you're giggling. And do something that is so dumb because that's what he needs. So that is the main thing. When you're doing the art of seduction, you have to be thinking about your placement, the way you're putting your body, your hand gesture should be relaxing and cute. You have to think about how you are moving. Are you moving cute, sexy, and alluring without doing too much? You also have to make sure that the way you're moving your mouth is precise. Lick your lips, but don't go to bed with him. Do everything that allows him to think that you want to go to bed with him. Take an aspect of different women that you like. Take the characteristics of different people and blend them together. And you will become this perfect, phenomenal woman, and with that, you'll be able to seduce him. Don't be afraid to get close to him. When you are with him, you should be practically on top of him. You have to seduce him. Everything has to be sexy, and everything has to be what you will not be. Even if you're not a sexy person, make yourself one. If there are a few things that you really want, you need to make sure that he thinks that it's coming, but you will not let it happen. So he's going to do what you want. The whole point of this is to make him feel like he's going to get fun time with you, but he's never going to get it. You have to mentally prepare yourself every time that you're going to see him. You have to prepare yourself because you will need to kiss him, be all over him, and make sure that when you kiss him, you're not rushing it. After all, if you start doing that, he will start expecting it every time. So you should not kiss him like that, but you should make sure that you still give him a nice kiss. It is one of those things where you just have to put up with it. Think of the pros and cons, because that way you will never get emotionally invested in him because you can't even stand the sight of him. You're supposed to be heartbroken because it is part of life. You have to learn how to go out, fall in love, get your heart broken, get back up again, and keep going. It is something that we all go through, and you just have to learn how to deal with it and learn from what happened in the relationship. Now, if you get to the point where you've had enough of that, and you've had enough of looking for love all the time, and you have had enough of looking for somebody to come and save you, then you will be in the position that you don't care about love anymore. You will just want something that makes sense. So you have to be pragmatic and stop following your heart and start using your head. And for you to get to that point, you need your heart to be broken. And you will need to go through those things, and you can give him your fake name. You don't want to get to the point where you become completely heartless, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be scared to give yourself to somebody. But the point is that you don't want to give yourself to everyone like the way you did when you were young. It is very easy to fall in love with somebody broke than somebody that has money. So why will you want to fall in love with somebody that doesn't have anything? Won't you rather fall in love with a real man that can do real things and that is really making money and is not just a talker? Someone who actually practically owns his own place and not sleeping on his grandma's sofa? Wouldn't you rather want to date successful people because it is very easy to fall in love with that person, or to like that person a lot, or to care about that person? So you have to think of it that way. Just do what you have to do because no one is going to pay your bills and no one is going to help you financially, but this guy is going to be helping you financially. So you have to do it, and at the end of the day, it will teach you something because everything is not about looks, and most of the time the people that are not good looking are very nice people. They can be fun, and they can make you learn, and they can show you that there is much more behind looks. The art of seduction is about using your femininity as a weapon and using your magic because the magic is your femininity. This is how womanly you are. It is the house of you, and it shows how smart you are. It is how kind you appear and how lovely you smell. When you think of the essence of a true woman, you think of all these amazing things. So it is about bringing it back to that. You need to be able to separate the difference between a girl now and before and have to bring back the femininity of the early years. It's all about being sexy, family, and classy, and you have to make sure that you look really good on your pictures too. Seduction using dark psychology. A lot of women suppress their sexuality because of the fear of being judged or fear of what other people are going to think of them. Accept everything of who you are. The first step is for you to accept everything of who you are. That goes from the negative to the positive to even the taboo so that you can have a sexual aura. You need to have an enhanced presence. And to turn this around, you need to create the illusion that you offer such variety and adventure. A man is easily deceived by appearance. He has a weakness for his visual sight. So you have to create a physical appearance of somebody who has a high sexual aura mixed with a theoretical manner, and he will become trapped. He cannot become bored with you, yet he cannot discard you. Keep the distractions out of it, and never allow him to see who you really are. He will follow you until he later drowns. So what you should really do is to enhance your appearance. Now, remember that men are more about your appearance than reality. Because men don't want reality. Men want to escape from reality, and they want an illusion. They want a fantasy. They want a dream. So when you become that fake imagination and fake visual of his desires and his fake fantasy, men are just going to be around you. Have a hint of innocence. Now, the beautiful thing about this is that for this to work, you need to have a hint of innocence. Your innocence will make him love you and make him not want to shove you and make him want to feel better as if they are the fatherly figure and you are the victim. Women fear to be sexual because of the feeling of being judged. In that way, you're acting as if you need help, and you're acting as if you don't know what is going on, as if you are a victim to circumstances, and you allow the guy to pick you up and see you. But you are doing that with a little smile, knowing that you know what is going on, and that at any second you can remove the dynamics, and he will be the one chasing you. And you're the one controlling him because you're not even emotionally invested in the interaction. So now, how do you display innocence? And how do you portray that? You can do that with two things. The first one is your voice. Your voice should remain calm and unhurried, and as if you have not woken up or left your bed. So anyway, you should always be in control of your voice. You should remain at equilibrium no matter what happens. You should remain calm and centered, and that will give you that innocent aura like, hey, how are you? It is really music to men's ears. You also want to come across as if you don't know what you are doing, that you are the weak one, and that you need help. You say something like, I don't know what is going on. You are not doing it because you are dumb, but you are just acting dumb to play on the dynamics, but if you are dumb, you're just dumb, and you just can't help it. So you have to have that schoolgirl innocence and maintain the sexuality and maintain an air of innocence because without the innocence, you look guilty. You also need to add that innocence so that it will give the danger appear forbidden and wrongful. Men are rational and repressed, so by bringing him out of that little shell of rationality, it will make him ask himself what he is doing, consciously and unconsciously. Dress in a goddess way. Another important part is the way you dress and the way you look. Your clothes are what you will use to create the goddess effort. You want to represent something of the man's imagination, so you use your clothes to create that image. Your physical aspect is your main aspect and part of your power. You want to have a high scene and a heightened sense of femininity, in that you need to use makeup and seductive clothing to do just that. And it will act powerfully on men because men don't know what they want. Know that thing that men want and become a representation of that in real life. You won't be harmonious so that no single elements will draw attention, and your presence must be charged, and that life and fantasy will come true. It is used to cast a spell and distract you. In other words, you want to play into the stereotypes. If you look at the before and after of celebrities, you will see that the difference is not in who they are, but it's in their appearance. So by just simply looking at the images of those before and after, You can make the subtle predictions of who they are and what their characteristics are. They are just emulating an aura, and it is all from the way they look and from the way they groom themselves. So you can definitely dictate it by simply being proactive about it. And know what you are doing. Don't just do it randomly. This is an act, and the masters tend to hide the effort behind the act. There is a lot of efforts to this that makes it look effortless. Although a smile and a seductive look are important, they must never dominate your appearance. You must be able to stimulate a generalized desire, and the best way to do that is to create an overall impression that is both distracting and alluring. There is not one particular trait that you should have, but you need a combination of qualities. You have to create the illusion that man wants and not in reality. Men are in reality in their daily lives, thinking about numbers and thinking about so many things, so you want to send them to fantasy. You have to dress in a way that becomes a man's fantasy. You want to look like an Egyptian goddess. If you dress up like a normal person, you won't have that look. You should provoke him, but in reality, you will feel as if he's the one taking control, but it is you because you know what you are doing. You're becoming a figure of his imagination, and that will make a man want you, because when a man wants to escape reality, he will come to you. So you want to seduce your target physically. In addition to all this, you have to make your target feel a mix of emotions from pleasure to desire to reform and tame, and the more that they try to tame you, the deeper they go into your web. But for you to have that desire, you have to give out that air of innocence and that air of sexuality, and above all, the air that you don't need them and that you have other people around you. You want to create fear by suddenly changing your mood and keeping the man off balance. On the other hand, you want to intimidate him with prodigious behavior. You want to have that aura and elusiveness, because if you don't have that elusiveness, you will look too easy, and he'll become boring to you. So to give it that long-term seduction that lasts years, instead of a month, you can't be with him all the time, because the more you spend time with him, the more he becomes used to your stimulus, so that he won't be longer around you again, and that is the reason why men lose interest often. Manipulate your movements. So, in addition to all those things, you want to manipulate your movements, because it is not just one thing, it is an aura that is bridging all the little parts together and creating a big image that you are trying to cross. You want to move gracefully and unhurriedly. The proper gestures and movements are like the proper voice. You should hint at something exciting and staring desire without being obvious. Your hair must be cool, as if you had all the time in the world for love and pressure. Your gestures must have a certain ambiguity, suggesting something both innocent and erotic. Anything that cannot be immediately understood is supremely seductive, so it is more about moving gracefully and moving at your own pace and not talking fast and not moving too fast. It is about having that shield aura. So just move slowly, relax, make ambiguous gestures, and say ambiguous things, and it will make a man think. So what you want to do is mix this up into a good individual, and it will create who you are. So this is pretty much how you are able to seduce and flirt with anybody and be able to capture the heart of very powerful men through dark psychology. Mental and emotional manipulation. In this section, we are going to talk about how to spot and stop mental manipulators. So how do they differentiate between somebody that's just being nice and somebody being nice because they want something? And that always happens because it's hard to tell the difference, especially if you feel that you are being manipulated. Therefore, you should know the difference between manipulations and love, because nowadays, it looks as if everyone has an ulterior motive. Imagine this example where you go to a shop and there are no prices on the product. In your mind, you'll be thinking that you are about to be screwed over because you don't know the motive of the shop owner. So what is mental manipulation? Mental manipulation is influence without consent. Every day, most of us are in our minds, so we are playing mind tricks. We are trying to frustrate someone who is trying to influence someone. So the plan starts small and starts going big. A small favor turns into a massive favor. They tell you that they are lost. They ask you, do you know where the beach is? And you will say, oh, it's 5 miles down that way. Could you show me? And before you know it, they have gotten you into the door.
One more chapter, dude.
Chapter 9. Beware of dark manipulators. You have to be on the lookout for those people because they are out there. And not only do you encounter them in your personal life, but you also encounter them in your professional life as well. You have to be able to spot them and be able to see the inconsistencies so that you can get an idea of who they really are. All human beings create a blind spot that prevents them from seeing people for who they are. Once we become emotionally attached to somebody, or we are romantically attached to someone, we tend to focus on what we like about that person and we ignore their faults. It is very good to put everybody that you need in a very deep relationship. The world is full of people who are trying to take advantage of you if you do allow them to do so. Always judge people by what they do, not what they say or how they look at their past relationships, and actions are a good indicator of how they'll treat you now and in the future. We buy things based on emotions and justify it based on logic. So when you're hypnotized by somebody's beauty and you have never had somebody that is super hot in your life, especially if you have a woman that is manipulative and especially a super beautiful woman that have men kissing their asses, they are used to manipulating men and getting away with it. So if you're not paying attention, you will be the next victim. So you can become a victim and think that your situation is unique. The danger effect of dark manipulation. Why is it so difficult? And why is this so dangerous? It is because an abusive person who has been with a toxic manipulator, mainly a narcissist or any toxic person for a long time, is continually convinced of things that are not true. They are convinced of those things that are true and the things that they would view as the truth. They are convinced that they are not true. Also, they no longer know what reality is. Living for a long time with somebody that is cohesively controlling you is not only confusing, but it is very draining. You begin to feel blamed for everything. Everything that you do, even the things that you do that you thought were normal, you'll be blamed for as if it was bad. On top of that, you will be isolated. Your former friends or family members, or people that know you, and people that see you, will notice that something is going on. You will pretend that you are fine, and you are living the lie that your life is great. And you are living the lie that you're not abused, and that everything is normal because you are so confused and you are in the middle of a whole mess. You do everything that you can do to convince other people that nothing is wrong. Now when you speak to the abuser, the person's logic will be how the other person is jealous and how the other person wants you to become bad, and that is not a healthy relationship for you to have. So you should not speak to an abuser because all the person wants to do is to put you down. Now, you tend to agree with the abuser because when you're in the middle of an abusive relationship and your perspective of everything has been whipped so badly that you no longer know what is right or wrong, it is really hard to see clearly. The way you view the world will change completely. Over time, they will change the way you think and how you love. They will define and redefine what love is. The abuser will do something to you and you will feel that it is not love, but when you say something, you'll be punished. Sometimes the punishment is very subtle. It is the silent treatment. Now, when you get the silent treatment, instead of focusing on how bad the behavior or the original behavior is, you start reflecting on yourself. You start asking yourself, what did I do wrong? Why are they ignoring me? What did I say? What should I have done? And then you put the focus on yourself and not on the original abuser. So it keeps you confused. And that is the way the abuser controls you, not to bring up things about themselves again. The abuser defines what is appropriate for you. You keep on being ignored at the beginning of the relationship. If you're out in public, it's so humiliating to be in a restaurant with somebody and the person completely ignores you. You have a very terrible feeling towards the end of the relationship, and that will become a normal thing. You won't even expect conversation because the abuser will define what treatment was, and he will end up adopting it, thinking that it is normal, and he will tell you how foolish you are. However, you are blinded by the manipulation that they will be fine and about what is right and what is wrong, and they will define the way you are supposed to change to be what they expect you to be. They act as if they are trying to help you to be a better person, and what you don't realize is that any time that you reach a certain level, they will reach the bar more. Therefore, when you reach another level, they will raise the bar higher and higher and higher, and you'll be in the hamster wheel running so fast and exhausting yourself, and yet never getting anywhere with them. You never get the approval, and you never make them happy because they don't want to be happy with you. They just want to feel the power of how fast they can make you run in the hamster wheel. Then little by little, you start losing your personality, your passions become non-existent, and you are unable to put a gauge on them. You forget what is important to you, and you no longer pursue things that mean anything to you. The narcissist erases you, and it is even more sadistic and scary. He teaches you to erase yourself, and because you are engaging or you are participating in yourself, it becomes a part of who you are. It is not like prisoners of war who might see something while they are in prison. They may be forced to say something, and just say it just to remove some of their sufferings. But deep down, they know that it is not who they are, but soon as they are released, they are fine. But with abusive behavior, it is different. You don't just say it and you don't just change. You are not just pretending to change to another person's anger, you are actually participating in changing. And you are changing inside of yourself so that you don't know who you are. You miss yourself, and you are gone by the end of the relationship, and you don't even know who you are anymore, to the point where if someone asks what your favorite color is, you don't even know. So it teaches you to erase yourself, and then as you are erased without realizing it, the abuser begins adopting your good qualities, your passions, your pursuit, and the things that were important to you, and you begin adopting their own view of things, their personality, their heart rate, their characteristics. It's almost like a personality swap. Now, you normally stay in that relationship because people that normally manipulate are experts, and they know how to keep somebody in a relationship. And one way that they do that is with the hot and cold intermediate swap in kindness. So they are abusive, they are belittling or controlling you, they're hurting you, and just when you realize that this isn't normal, that this thing that you have been convinced of is normal, they suddenly become kind and warm. And in your thoughts, you think, maybe I'm just too sensitive. Maybe we were just having a bad day. Everything is fine. Look how great it is. And just when you start to trust again, he goes back, creating intensity and trauma bonds that force you. And when you are stuck in a trauma bond, you automatically start chasing after that intermediate want. You know it was there because you just tasted it. It comes every now and then, and you think that you are the one that is responsible for it. You think that it is not there because it is because of something wrong that you did, and you start chasing it, and the narcissist is enjoying everything like some sort of seductive gain.